Testing. Oh man, testing. All right, I think I've done this. I think I'm on here. This is a test. I'm looking at the chat. I just posted a video that I'm going to be talking about. Can everybody hear me? That's here. I think I'm live. Oh, cool. Thank you. Thank you. Disclosure now. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jessica, for being here. Sober Carper, thank you for being here. And Kyle, thank you for being here. Everybody, I appreciate you all. All right. I didn't know how if anybody would even show up for this topic because so many want fantasy now, it seems like, as opposed to science and data. And, that's kind of what I like more. And I kind of try to keep things a little bit more real because let's be honest, all right, just being contactees, it's weird enough as it is. Or being into this, it's so weird that you don't have to make stuff up and start lying. And I see a lot of that going on. So I try to keep things that are more scientific and we have a foundation to compare with our experiences and things that gives us a type of validation. So that's kind of where I've always been at with that. All right. With this here, this is interesting because sometimes I guess everybody's talking about disclosure now and things like that, which is cool. But this is disclosure that happened a long time ago. And I think it just either got forgotten about or not really discussed, or in some way it's just been sequestered. All right. And this concerns with Marcel Vogel. And those of you that know who Marcel Vogel is or may not know, when you, a lot of think in the New Age circles, Vogel crystals are real popular right now. They have a unique cut on them. They're really pretty, but those are called Vogel crystals, and they're supposed to be a type of a healing crystal that are cuts that are done by Marcel Vogel. And who Marcel Vogel was an analyst with IBM, and he had some things to do where he also studied the not just liquid crystal and also like fluorescence, and he started getting into lightning bugs and fireflies and the bioluminescence that occurs within them. So he's got to do with some of the brightness of the fluorescent and also some colors that we have on our TV also. And he did some things with IBM also as far as designing some of those disk memories, IBM disk memories. So he's quite ingenious in that way. Now, he was not really into the UFO thing per se, but he was into the healing crystals and liquid crystal technology and all that. But he got approached by a gentleman that was named, make sure I get their names right, Jim Delatosa and Wendell Stevens. And they were in contact with Billy Meier. And I don't know if everybody here is familiar with the Billy Meier contact deal, where he was supposed to be in contact with the Pleiadians. All right, we'll talk a little bit about more of that in a second. All right, but he got some samples from Billy Meier's that were supposed to be from a Pleiadian craft. All right, now delving quickly into Billy Meier. All right, the problem that I have with that. Hold on, let me turn the light down in here. I'm sorry. Okay, sorry about that. Oh, it's much better. Sorry, okay, I was getting blasted by light in here. I couldn't see. Okay, when it comes to the Billy Meier thing, one of the problems that I have with the Billy Meier thing is that back in 1994, the first UFO conference I ever went to in 1994 was actually somebody I knew named Tamar that was a walk-in. She had this put on, but she lived near the Air Force Base. And it was quite interesting, but the feature was a gentleman named Randolph Winters. And Randolph Winters said that he spent time with Billy Meier, who was in Switzerland for several years and had all this evidence, these pictures and everything that he was going to show. So I wound up, someone else told me, and we went there and experienced this thing and checked it out. All right. Now, here's the thing, folks. All right. When I went there, I wanted to go to this because this is 1994. I've been having intense contact those years. Okay. 92, 93, 94, 95. I was having intense contact. And this is something that I should bring up now that makes me why I looked into Marcel Vogel. Okay, Marcel Vogel in '94, I had 93 actually. I had this experience with this engine that I've shown everyone before. This crystalline, I want to call it an engine. I think it's more of a brain, but this thing was huge. Okay, those crystals were about 10 feet tall, almost over a basketball goal, 9, 10 feet, and they're about probably I'd say 2 feet wide. But they had a bioluminescence inside of them, which isn't on the illustration. Okay, and the cuts on these looked somewhat similar to Vogel crystal cuts or quasi crystals, which had different lattices. Okay, that may not be illustrated there, but when you look at those crystals, you'll know what I'm talking about. So that's a reason I became interested in what Vogel was talking about way back then, and why those crystals look somewhat similar to what I had seen. So that's just, and that's when this thing was just okay, deactivated. When it's activated, it starts spinning. These things are spinning. Okay, they're spinning so fast that I can't see them anymore. And like I'm invisible, and there's this hum coming off with the light, and there's this hum, and I'm being told during then, because this being was over here there too, Xandar, so the Yandar, but it was communicating with me that the sound of this wasn't just it wasn't just an ability to power planetoids and legion ships, is what he put in my mind, but it can also heal. It heals human flesh. And that, certain things like that you don't forget when stuff like that gets stuck in your mind. Okay, I was young at that point. I mean, so anyway, that reason is why I took an interest in Vogel and what he was doing, and Vogel crystals themselves. And back then, looking into that, I came across then, because I used to go to the science center in the Omnisphere and always checking stuff out. They always got interesting stuff there, and it's cool with the people there. And they had this video of this Vogel guy who worked with IBM, but he was doing this analysis on these samples that were sent from Billy Myers. Okay, now, again, back to Billy Meier, okay? Sorry, I don't mean to skip around too much on everybody here. And I will look at the chat when I get done babbling on, which shouldn't take too long. This conference in 1994 featuring Randolph Winters, and you can look that cat up on YouTube, and he'll come up with the Billy Meier stuff, all right? I don't know if he's still alive or not. But here's the thing, okay? You had all these pictures, sat there for a couple hours, and man, I'm never going to BS y'all, all right? I was disappointed because I was trying to compare to what these ships looked like to what I had experienced, which was this, okay? And everybody knows about this. I'm not going to go across as how it morphed and tripped me out and all that, but I was on board this thing. But this kind of looks like a Palladian craft in ways. So I wanted to know, like what, I want to see these ships. And then when he's showing these pictures, man, I swear, y'all, okay, it looked like, I get myself in trouble, but I can't bullshit nobody. Man, it looked like some wedding cakes, okay? Suspended in the air, wedding cakes with those sugar balls on them, those sugar balls, those metal-looking sugar balls. I mean, that's what they look like to me, okay? And then some of the pictures look like they were models. And then he had this thing that was the laser gun or whatever that Myers had, the laser gun, and that looked like, man, I had Buck Rogers replicas that looked better than that stuff, man. I mean, so that to me was just a little bit insulting, all right? And then the next thing is that comes up eventually with Billy Myers is that he has these pictures, I'm sure everybody here is familiar with it, that he says is like these Pleiadian women. And it turns out they're like the women from Hee Haw or something, the singers from Hee Haw or that TV show or something weird like that from some TV show. These are not Pleiadian women. And, and I think what you got there is that he was having some type of a contact, got popular, and then had to, got involved with that organization he was with or whatever, and ran out of material, ran out of stuff. And he started manufacturing things. You see what I mean? So that puts a whole bunch of muck and a whole bunch of discredibility in this whole thing. But that way we can't see some things that were true in that contact. And that analysis that I just put in the chat, okay, in fact, I'm going to repost it here again right now so everybody will be able to get a look at it, all right? I'm not going to label it, but it's my name on there and you'll see it. There's the deal. Okay, that is about a 2-hour analysis over these materials that were sent through this guy, Jim Delatorre and Wendell Stevens. to Marcel Vogel. Now, Marcel wasn't into the UFO thing, all right? He was more of a scientist. And but when he got these pieces, he did analysis on them. Microscopy on these pieces. Okay, there was like 6 samples. And when I say that, he had this year was 1979 is what is on there right now. 1979 is what I just posted that. That was a long time ago. But he's even telling the equipment that he's using. He's showing you, and it is advanced electron microscopic analysis. Okay, he goes really deep on these pieces. And the deeper he goes, you start seeing things that, like, he'll start mentioning that these things have a what's called a befringement upon them, which is actually spelled, because I don't want to mislead anybody. People say, that cat, I don't know what he's talking about. Befringement, it sounds like biofrigid, but actually it's spelled B-I-O-F-R-E-N-G, or B-I-R-E-F-R-E-N-G-E-N-T, biofrigid materials. And then also that they contain these different compounds that are put in a way together that shows lack of heat, which is implying cold fusion. Now, that's something we still can't do to this date. And the reason why I think this is very important is because, look, I've been telling everybody since I first came forward with that trick, that crook in Australia, that I wound up dealing with, that demon that's still right now pretending like he's some sort of angelic cat calling in angels. What kind of angels you? Anyway, I'm going to go into that as I'll get to going. I don't like the demonic that on platforms. But anyway, since I first came forward, not to get sidetracked by demonic thoughts. Gosh, yeah. Anyway, since I first came forward, I've been saying the same thing that I was told in childhood, and then again during my adulthood experiences of what these ships are constructed of. That there's 4 components. Okay, one is you've got metals, and I've said this before, so it's nothing different. Some of you say this guy's repeating himself, but I think it's necessary. All right, so please bear with me. One is the metals that are mined from planets that are devoid of atmospheres, and especially Van Allen belts. And they're showing me, especially ones that are on stars of a different nanospectrum, they're getting bombarded. Those metals on those planets like that are getting bombarded with the resistance that we don't know of. Okay, that's not even found here on Earth. And then you've got also a type of a quasi-like crystal, photonic crystal type of component also. All right, and then you've got this is big. See, I start getting too excited. And Jessica's in the chat, so I know she can always dig on this now, especially know what we know about the Moe, is that there's a mycelium, a fungal component. All right, and I knew that before they'd actually told me when I was touching the walls. This is a physical experience. I'm touching the walls of this craft, and anyway, one of the walls looks similar to that. Okay, I've shown that before. Just a better picture with the eggs. I'm not going to search because it'll get me off track what I'm saying. Anyway, when I touched the inner walls, there was a living component to them, and it felt like not like a toadstool. It was more harder consistent than that, but I could feel it was alive and that type of a deal. Okay, so that's the third part. Okay, this mycelium, this fungal component. All right, and then you've got the DNA of the crew also. And it's more than, I think it's more like also their life energy too, that is used. And all this makes this compound that they grow over a micro wormhole, like a mako. You know, there's this idiot dude in Jessica's chat was trying to mess around and saying that I keep talking about mako sharks. No, makos, MECOS, magnetically eternally collapsing objects, which are actually black holes. I'm not going to go into all that again, all right? But these ships are actually growing. You know, they can actually they can almost generate black holes in the laboratory now, and people should look a lot more at what actually. Oh man. Oh, I want to call it Lyrid. It's not Lyrid. It's Anyway, all they do is LIGO. Sorry, LIGO. LIGO actually looks for nothing but black holes. It's always worthy to stay at you know, I try to keep up a little bit of what they're finding. like the sounds that colliding black holes make, massive black holes, and what the stuff that they're showing even more, to where I think it's going to show eventually that it's the black holes, the MACOs, that are the neural network of our universe. But I'm not going to go too far into that. All right. Point being that these ships are grown over that, okay, over one of those. And right now you can even research like things that they're bonding in space. Like, for example, the president's windshield, I believe, that's made, and it's actually bonded when you start bonding things in space, zero gravity, or in the zero gravity effect environment, things bond completely different. So that's what's going on out in space, but also being grown. This is a life form, okay? And that's why I also sometimes, let's say, the warp core or the engine, the heart of the craft is actually a black hole itself. That's really what's meant when we start talking about type 3 civilizations, type 4 that are using not just the space of the fabric of space as their power source, but they're using the Mako itself, the fabric of the black hole and the energy of the black hole itself as their primary power source. So that's, very, very interesting. We start looking into that stuff. Anyway, point being, that is what I've always said, and that's what I've been told, and they showed me is what these ships are made of, the ones I've dealt with. That's not counting for all the others experiences people have, okay? Can only speak to my own, so forgive me for that. But anyway, what he's showing Vogel with his analysis show is exactly what I'm talking about. That refringement that is being seen off there is like some type of a crystal that is put in with this, also these unique metals and this compound, which describes what it is. Everyone can watch it. It's a 44-minute deal. But how it's been put together, and each of this maintains its own separate identity. Okay. And when it maintains its separate identity, shows that it was put together by cold fusion, which we cannot do yet. Nuclear, especially back then. This was in 79. That's, you'll be watching the 79. And it's a really good scientific data filled analysis of 6 samples, I believe. Now, Vogel said that one of the samples disintegrated after they got done doing the analysis on it. Another one turned into powder, and I think 2 of them disappeared. And he said he was he gave the guy's name. I'm sorry, I didn't write that one down. From NASA, he was going to send one of these pieces to somebody at NASA, and it disappeared in the plastics that he had in his pocket. And he said also he had crystals when he was doing crystal work that had unique lattices that had done that too, disappeared. And he thought he'd had these samples just to get the actual hard data on it. And then whatever it is, they go back where they're from, whoever. He said it was a mystery. So that's something else to kind of check out. You know what I mean? It's very interesting in that way. Anyway, so what he was saying about these Billy Meier samples, and then I think being it, did they really come from Meier? Did they come from these guys or where? But it's showing something that is real, that is going along with my experiences, something you can see scientifically. And that's why I think it's very worthy looking at that and checking out that analysis. And sorry, to make sure I get everything else on here. Man, that's a lot of it. That's a lot of it. Anyway, so the point being that the Billy Myers thing, it's too bad that there's so much bureaucracy and crap that's been thrown in there that's falsehood and false testimony, because there is some type of truth there where those samples came from that Vogel got his hands on. And it's cool that you can actually look at that video now. It's been years and years, and I think it holds a little bit more validity, less than the fantasy we're so used to hearing so much about. Okay, I'm not trying to discredit all that, but I like things especially that go a little bit further back than I can trace from when I was alive, and things I can see that are inconsistencies, because that's what caught me back then. I had seen at the Omnisphere that video, but it was different. It was like, they had stuff on microfiche and stuff back there, but it was different. It was in one of those rooms, and they would show different scientific stuff in there. But that was very much memorable. And to me, when you hear a scientist like that talking, so it gave some validity to the Myers thing. And then when I went to see in 1994 Randolph Winters at Timars, oh, I was so disappointed. Oh, in fact, it was, to be honest with you, man, that stuff was almost insulting. You know what I mean? But it was a good life-changing conference for me because there were a couple of ladies there. One that was probably the strongest medium I've met to date. And we started talking in the room back there, and Timar was a quote unquote a walk-in. And she's much older. When I say this lady was like, sometimes the skin is hard on Caucasian people. She looked like she was pushing maybe 80 or something, but she was really cool. But then she would, when you talk, she said she had this walk-in. So sometimes you're talking to her, she would just go like that or something, and she leaned up, she started talking like a little girl. And it was real odd. And I was like, I was working on my psychology degree. I was like, man, this is Sally Field. This is some sort of Sybil. You know what I mean? But then in the back room of her house, she has all these portraits of all these different types of star beings that she had hand drawn. I mean, there were like probably three, what do you call it, collages, 3 or 4 that have probably 10 beings a piece on them, really well drawn. And this little girl, this said she was from, I think it was somewhere near Arcturus, but a different level with these light beings and things, and came in cart and came to walk in with a Timar. And it's something I would write off as, just okay, it's Sybil or whatever. And then back in that room, I'm talking to this other woman, Timar comes in and starts telling me things, or this little girl comes in and starts saying things about my contact experiences that no one knew. Okay. And that was a trip. All right. When I say that, like, she comes in, and I'll just reveal this. Look, I was tripping out, man. You don't understand. When those ships really come on you and you go on board one physically, it's all tripped out. And you can't think about anything else. You don't have a frame of reference for what's going on. And sometimes those ships come up on me, like I'm out practicing this thing called the Gate of Power, which is something from the Great Walkers that was introduced by Carlos Castaneda. And I believe it was the book Tales of Power of his series. Anyway, the Gate of Power is a way of walking. You're looking down at the ground, and also you're pulling the energy of the earth, and it generates like this little, your solar plexus generates a little light. And I used to trip out on that. I was like, whoa, I can see a little light, and it stops you from tripping. So I was out practicing this, and then I stop, and I look, I'm out in this field, I'm toward all the way across this field. Well, it's way out there, like, whoa, you know what I mean? And to where it's like more than what it should have been. And I didn't realize at this time that what the Gate of Power actually does is it stops your internal dialogue, stops you from talking to yourself. Okay, all sorts of stuff happens then. We become that's how we become multidimensional. Anyway, so I'm tripping out on the fact that I'm completely across this field almost. The car's way back over there, and then a ship starts manifesting out in the sky, and it's right there, and you some sort of communication going on with it. And man, I just trip out sometimes. I tripped out. I just screw the Gate of Power. I ran back like Carl Lewis back to the car and took off. And I'm telling you this because this little girl, Timar's walk-in, comes up to me and says, "Man, you've hurt a lot of people. You've hurt family members." I'm like, what are you talking about? She said, "You said you'd never do that." So you've been running. They've come for you and you run. And it hurts them. It hurts them. They don't understand it. You said you would never do that. And you're doing it. I was much younger then, but I mean, some things you get confronted with that was like, She said, they're going to come again. You could go up physically again. You don't always have to go physically if that's what you don't like. You can go just energy and dream body. You can still go aboard like that. And you just don't remember. And I was like, I do remember some of that, but it's not the same as when you go on there physically. Anyway, so I just think it's worthy bringing that up. That's my experience concerning Billy Meier, all right? And that's kind of where the thing with Marcel Vogel goes. It's really worth checking out how those things are put together when that microscope, when they start going, like when the microscopy starts going down to like the lower levels of it. It's really interesting what he starts saying. How he thinks he's, like he said at the end, he says, I think the real scientists need to take this stuff serious. And why are we even being given these samples? And we need to quit trying to discredit it and try to learn the science of it. And that's going so far back, I think it makes it really worthy and gives us something to really stand on, okay? And something, just another disclosure part that I thought maybe everybody would enjoy. And it's a lot of science. I like science. I know people get mad at me and put me down for that. But hey, look, I'm not saying science is an answer all for everything. It's not. But it is at least a foundation. Because when you got this stuff going on right now, we're dealing with stuff that is conscious events. I mean, these are conscious events, and these gatekeepers don't want us all to talk about this. We're talking about it now. The fact they wanted to be material and solid crafts. I used to be like that. That's why I made the difference between my physical experiences and my astral dream ones, because I have a great imagination. What if the non-physical ones are like me making stuff up? You know what I mean? Or my imagination gone awry. The ones that were physical were different. I could touch stuff. I could feel stuff. I got sick. Whole nother thing, which was actually an issue with all that. We won't go into that. So anyway, that's just, the things, and I've always looked for validation, always. And sometimes I'll come across something like that right there, that this analysis that does that. So I just thought it'd be very interesting for everybody to check that out. All right. I'm gonna take a drink real quick. And sorry, I'll look at the chat now. I think I've mumbled on through most of the information I want to give. The most important thing is, even if you all don't want to, I know the scientific thing doesn't go over. It's a man up there doing analysis with electron microscope, and it's really detailed, but it's solid data though. And I think it should be talked about a lot more, and it just kind of got forgotten and sequestered, or a lot of people don't know about it. And so I heard these scientist cats talking about it. I forgot about it myself. I was like, God, I forgot about that. Why I got into Vogel in the first place. And you just start thinking about the crystals that he has, the Vogel crystals. But that guy did a lot more than that. I mean, as far as what he did as a scientist, and the companies that he started that were involved with liquid crystal, and involved with the memory contained within liquid crystal, along with illumination. And the reason why, real quick, I'm gonna make sure I address this. I was fascinated with him back then because he was talking about fireflies. And several times, like, I had experiences, there were fireflies present. And the second, my adult onset experiences, the second time, missing time over 4 hours, when I get out to the spot, the contact spot, there are all these fireflies. I mean, so many, and the males are the ones that fly. The females can fly, but they tend to more crawl and kind of sit in the trees more and light, and that's how they do their things. But there were just, hundreds and hundreds of males flying around, and the trees were going boom, boom, boom. It was really beautiful. Then the experience happened after that. And that's why I know beyond a doubt that the light beings, the fireflies, are aware of the light ships, because these were light ships. They're light, but they're also conscious craft until they start really manifesting. You know what I mean? Coming through more, and then they become a way to where we can have communication with them. But they were aware of it. I'm more than positive of that. And taking that, cross-referencing that, when I had my encounter with John Vivinco, and that's on my channel too, at this channel too, underneath the SETI playlist. I've got that thing up here, me, John, and that demon. But I got him to talking about that because his team, he had them remote view some type of fireflies that were in, I think it was somewhere in the rainforest, that were like very bizarre. And they start remote viewing this, and what they start finding is that these are fireflies, not just that are from another place, but from another dimension too, another density and dimension, both. And they had actually seeded those fireflies here that got eradicated in the rainforest fires, and they wanted to know what happened to them, and that's why they were here investigating more. And the type of things, and we start dealing with beings that are like that are actually self-luminous, that have bioluminescence like that, we don't fully understand everything, okay, and the connection that things have. I've had other experiences with fireflies, I mentioned before, out in the Flint Hills, that were way out there where it's open range, where I saw fireflies that were nothing I've ever seen before. these things were huge to where they had actually, most of them are green where I come from. They're bioluminescence. These were blue and they weren't flashing. They were staying illuminated. And these things were huge. Okay. When I say that, their bioluminescence part was about the size of this crystal. Okay. And these things were huge. That's huge. You know, that's just the bottom of their abdomen. And I mean, to the point to where I'm really trying to get a look at these things. And some of them were flying into this tree. And I keep telling my brother that we were with these guys out there, and that were these cats that lived out there. We was out there partying and riding, and they were showing us all this different stuff. And I keep telling her, I said, because it was just past dusk, and I'm seeing these things. I said, these aren't normal. These fireflies. You know, some of my Native American friends called them wisp, but those are also the ones that are quick too. Anyway, point being that my brother's like tripping out, going, man, you're tripping out, these fireflies, man. I said, you're not paying attention, man. You're too busy having fun to where you're not really watching what these things are. And it's just some things you don't forget, because it wasn't long before the mosquitoes and the ticks, or not ticks, what do you call them? Chiggers that fly through the air out there in fields like that. That'll take your attention away real quick. Anyway, that's just something to kind of touch on there with the firefly thing. All right. And the touching, and with the John Vivinco connection there, and that they are aware of the light ships to a degree. In fact, I'm sure of that. Anyway. Okay. Sorry, I'm looking in the chat here. I want to thank everybody for being here. I don't want it to seem like I'm ignoring people. That's the main reason I come here is, and I know through Jessica's show, the chats are really cool. That's really where a lot of genius people exchange a lot of. I'm going to go up to the top here so I can try to see the stuff. Okay. I'm not very good at this, but I'm getting better. And I apologize, everybody. I don't know how to put up the pictures and stuff yet. I put up pictures of Billy Myers and some of the fake ones I saw, and some of the other stuff, but I just don't have that ability yet. But I'm learning, and I will get it down. So, okay, I'm at 407. Okay. Okay. Tennessee, Bigfoot, what's happening? Well, quite a few people in here. Thank you to everybody being here. Very cool. Sorry, I'm coming down at 410. I was trying to see what Rocky Mountain Skywatcher vocals have been amazing. Healing meditation videos. America Dan Willis, as well as teachers currently continue with amazing information. Cool. And don't think I'm familiar who Dan Willis is. Probably have to look him up. Cool. Everybody talking amongst themselves. Very cool. Very cool. And something I want to say too, when dealing with these beings and whatever, all the crystals I've seen, whether it be like what I just showed you, or the Andromedans that I showed you, little blue guys that had the little wands with those odd type of crystals on them, with the odd lattices on them, they were glowing. They all have this self-lumination, biolumination, or chemical illumination that comes from that comes out of these things. And it's something that Earth crystals don't do, And somebody tried to issue with me, say, "Oh, in Atlantis we had those." Okay, that's what somebody says. They remember that from past life memory. They might, but where did they come from? Because I know that there were solar charged crystals on board things like those Phantom Islands and those ships that come up from the inner Earth and have to, whatever it is, they have to use. They have to recharge those crystals with sun energy. That part is solar. And it's so interesting because when I gave Jessica the target of High Brazil, she picked that stuff up in the data. And that was no more than what I picked up psychically always and seemed to get information all the time. That's what I always got about the Phantom Islands. And that's for years and years ago. So sometimes I'll give her a target just to see is what I've seen or what I've been told or picked up. Is it real? You know what I mean? Is it correct? Sometimes, not always. I thought the last one, which was those that Templeton photo, the Solway Firth spaceman. I was hoping maybe that would be the Valkyrie robot, like what I kind of see, or like some private sector that was sending something like that out, testing that time technology in the private sector. But it wasn't. It was a bad genetic deal going on, a big bad laboratory thing going on. Somebody in the chat had said they thought it was like what was inside that robot sound like it was almost a type of black goo chimera, stuff like that could be. I mean, I don't know. I don't specialize in all the dark stuff. But man, I mean, it was not. It's like, man, okay, that's way worse than what I thought. I would have been better off if it just would have been some sort of government project or whatever, but that wasn't the case. So anyway, sorry, I'll keep going here and make sure I get through here. You know, oh, something I'll bring up real quick. Okay, there's this guy who is talking. It's man, I'll try to link it later. This guy talking about mind speak. In fact, Jessica, I sent it to you. It's kind of a little bit long, but it's a guy being interviewed by Sasquatch Theory, I think was the name of him. But not really familiar with them. But it was really interesting in what he was saying about the mind speak. And one thing about the mind speak, like I had received some when I was at the Ascetti Ranch, and the people that talk about that, there's a lot of discrediting going on because it's been said, like, you know, we don't know how do you know really for sure it's Sasquatch? Like for me, I can't say it was, but I'll tell you, whatever it was doing a good imitation. And why, for what reason? But that guy there that's talking on that show, gosh, it'll come up. I'm trying to think what it's called. Things they don't want us to know about Bigfoot or something like that. It's something very new that just came out. I'll try to remember to put a link of it up there. But anyway, what he starts saying about the type of mind speak, everybody likes to call it in the Sasquatch world, I guess, not telepathy or telethought, mind speak. He describes it very accurately to what happened to me as far as the type of communication. And he was saying he was getting overwhelmed by some of it and how so much was coming in so quick. It's quite descriptive what he's saying, and these things are right in front of him. So it's not a question of who and what is it that's communicating with him. He's seeing them, okay, and they've been messing around on his property. And his communications with them were really, really interesting and more down to earth, and it's worth checking out. I'll try to link it in there, all right? Cross-referencing that, and I'm hearing so much more about Sasquatch and trees keep coming up. I think that's wonderful. I think more needs to be explored on that. And like I've said before, their ability to shift into the dream body on top of everything else, and maybe being able to use trees to gather energy to do that, and possibly the fear of people. And I'm sorry, let's face it, not all the Sasquatch are buddies, okay? Not all these types. Some of them decisively do not like people. And can you blame them? Look at what, I mean, can you blame them? You know, but they're to a point of where, why? If you could scare the hell out of especially some young people, and you gather a little bit of energy and stay manifested longer, or do some few extra spiritual gifts, you know, or spiritual tricks, why not scare a little bit? You know, it's no different than people that you met that you've known your whole life to get off on scaring people. They try to come out on the darkness on you, or try to give the old boo and give you that scare. It's just an individual like that, and they might be gathering energy from the fear of it. You know, I'm not saying they all do that, but I think that should be really analyzed also. There was the guy, Man of Light. I brought him up a few times now. Hope some people looked him up last time. You know, he says that when he communicates with them, he gets mind speak, and he's seen them manifesting out of trees. He's got that stuff on his channel, but he's asked them how they do it, and he says, they told me. He's got that accent, that New Yorker accent. Spiritual powers. Yeah, they have spiritual powers. You know, I mean, that's and when you start dealing with, I say, this because they might be primitive by our means, by the way they feed and wild men, whatever, doesn't mean they're not masters of perception, and that we're not dealing with something like that. And we start looking at the Toltecs and casting that and all them. Who all was in on that? Well, this was a type 1 civilization, type 2 civilization. You know, is it just the medicine men that can do it? The medicine men of their clans, or can all of them do it? Is it every hybrid or every type can do it, or is it just certain hybrids, or what is it? I think it's really cool and interesting, and I think those will be fun things to find out. Anyway, let me keep going on this. Sober Carper. Billy also said he has a hitman taking out bad guys in Egypt, somewhere similar. There was something that he was involved with. It was an organization. I can't remember the name of it, but it was really attached to some negative stuff, and it was something that he had been organized with. And I mean, I can't think of the name of it. I'm sorry, but it's something that aided in his being discredited, along with showing the hee haw women or whatever show those girls were from. That didn't do him any favors. And then when you see those wedding cakes, when I was at that ranch the final time I was ever there, 2019, I kept eating inside because I don't really like sharing my food with the ants and the flies. I'm just not into it. So I was eating inside, but in Gillian's house, he had a big Billy Meier book. It had all those pictures in. I'm talking about now the fake ones. Some of them are good, but I mean, there's some of them that they do that look like they're wedding cakes. I swear to you, look like wedding cakes with those really sugar balls on them, those metal balls. They look like Steelies. And I was kept looking like, oh man, it looks like somebody put some cake weddings. There's wedding cakes on some invisible wires like Christopher Reeve. Very, very disappointed. And then, like I said, and then the laser gun or the phaser gun. That was terrible. Terrible. That's not, anyway, sorry. Madge River, what's happening? Wow, mycelium. Yeah, mycelium, that's, involved in very much so, not just the ship composition, but also mycelium, how that is the ships also interact with the earth. And when you deal with some of these organic craft and look at right now, and then there's also something I was mentioning before, that they're trying to make a shielding for the International Space Station that is based on radiotropic fungus, which is the fungus that uses its melanin, very black fungus, that uses its melanin to convert radiation into the growth cycle. And I had said before how I've been first heard about that's been 10 years ago now. These scientists, I think that's who they were, they contacted me these weird emails, and they were saying that they thought that radiotropic fungus and also the chenga mushroom were sent here by extraterrestrial civilizations, maybe dimensional, that were on the pico level, not just nano, but pico, very advanced, and they sent it here to help us with radiation cleanup. And then that's when Quiche kind of got a hold to that or whatever. And Quiche was supposed to have all these devices that I've seen many patents of them and stuff on YouTube, but no one's actually seen any of these things working. You know what I mean? So nothing came to that. But however, they are using that fungus to try to make some type of a self-regenerating shield for the International Space Station. And I need to pull that link up to that and post it on Facebook. I keep forgetting, so I apologize. I'll try to remember. Another thing, connecting back to Jessica, and when I had her remote view the Maui of Easter Island, and she kept coming up with this fungal component and fungal AI, like cyborgs of a type. And I started talking about that type of new cybernetics they're doing that have to do with actually making a mushroom brain, and it controls the robot. Okay. And they use different light to give these impulses to control the mushroom brain on these robots. Okay. And it's really creepy. And I think it's the beginning of exactly what Jessica saw, except what she saw being constructed was one of those targets. Is they're being constructed by these beings are using vortexes and coming through near this piece, and then using something that's similar to acoustic scalpels, what it sounded like to me. A type of acoustic scalpel to actually knock that rod to mold these things. And I think when dealing with acoustic scalpels, check into that technology. It doesn't use any cauterized wounds or anything, and it sounds a lot like something could be used for cattle mutilations. All right. Very much that type of technology. So, and it's something fairly new, acoustic scalpel is. Anyway, going back to, oh gosh, where was I before that? I'm sorry. Heck, sorry, I forgot now. I was talking about the acoustic scalpels and oh, mycelium, I believe. Anyway, oh yeah, just that that's what we're dealing with. One of those civilization there that's on the Pico that actually has the ability to sent that to us, a fungal civilization. There are a few videos on that too that sent that to us to help us with radiation cleanup. Going back to the little moe and the little robots that, gosh, I have that written down somewhere. What that's actually called? Yeah, sorry, but well, what those robots are actually called, that branch of technology. But what they're also doing is trying to make a skin for those robots that is made of a radiotropic fungus type of component, a self-regenerated skin for these fungal component for these mushroom robots. In fact, that's bothering me, so I'm going to look that up real quick, everybody. I'm sorry, I can't remember the exact name of what that science is called or what those things are called. That bothers me because stuff like that we need to know for sure. They are called. Here it is. Biohybrid machines. Biohybrid machines. Electrical signals from mushrooms. Ultraviolet light triggers electrical impulses that control the robot. And the mycelium that they're using to do that is oyster mycelium. And they also have the ability through these ultraviolet light ultraviolet light signals that trigger the electron impulses to override the natural mushroom impulses to allow full control of them. And that's the mushroom brain thing. And that goes into when you start seeing like how mushrooms will choose their path and all the stuff they're starting to show about mycelium itself and the growth of mycelium. So it's real interesting. And I mentioned before that when it comes to the moe, the wise men of that tribe in Easter Islands, when asked how did the moe move, they said they were asked by the elders of that time to move to the other side of the island. They got up and moved. And when you start looking at those biohybrid machines moving around, it looks quite similar, and it puts another whole thing to it. You know what I mean? So is it the past, circulating a timey-wimey thing? Anyway, sorry. Keep your center, Barry. My center's very good. Thank you. Let's see. Magnetic collection object. Yeah. Got you. Yeah. Makos, Tennessee. Yeah. Yeah. And those are, again, something I want to say about the Makos, okay, is that we hear about the Akashic records so much. And the Mako itself, when you're looking at a black hole, is the mechanism inside the black hole that actually holds the memory. So when something goes through the Mako, through the black hole, okay, like this crystal just passed through, there's actually a perfect copy made on the surface. And that they call that the quantum hologram. And that quantum hologram wraps around the Mako. So the inside of the Mako is going to be, so if you think of the accretion disk, the way the accretion disk away around the black hole looks, the Mako is going to look similar, okay, inside, but it's actually got, what that is the hard drive of the universe. So you've got the inside of the Mako, the most part is going to be current time, where the out part of it is going to be the beginning of the universe, at least the beginning of their creation, is what Rudy and the astrophysicists say. So anyway, this is interesting because when dealing with, I've said it before, the Makos actually function like conscious waves, what they're calling quantum conscious waves and conscious waves, which occur in two ways, which are spherical, or they're spherical, okay, and we have in our brains or in our bodies, we have what's called microtubules, okay, throughout our whole body, and specifically the ones in the brain microtubules that actually make up the mirror neuron network, but they're spherical. So if we're going to access one of these Makos, it's through brain waves to operate like brain waves. Okay, so it's going to be on that level. I mean, that's really where it's at. And that's when people say they access the Akashic records. And what are they really besides? We say, oh, they're records of space and time. And I believe people that say they can work with them. I'm not doubting that at all. But what are they really? Besides some Edgar Casey said, and maybe you read in some book religiously, but what are they? They're these makos. They're these black holes that we know there's some that are massive, little, small. They're all over. And I think they're the fabric of our universe, the real neurological. And when I say the brain microtubules that make up the mirror neuron network, as I'm telling you this now, you can see what I'm saying. It's similar to the grab, grab, hold, and release reflex out of monkeys. It's just a similar way how the brain works, but it's actually the same as the quantum hologram I just told you that makes up the Mako itself. That's really, really where it's at. See, but they don't want to talk about that because this is stuff that are conscious events. This is conscious. So if we have a civilization that is using the Mako itself, the black hole itself, as a power source, like some of these craft do, some of them are so advanced they may not be even in existence anymore in the third dimension at all. But they can still make contact with us because they still exist within the Mako, within the Akashic records. And they can make contact with us through our brain waves, even though they don't technically exist anymore. Or we can make the contact, vice versa. But that's real serious. It needs to be taken serious because that in that way, we have to be careful about the type of entrainment that we get, brain entrainment. Those of us that hear so much about negative encounters, and hey, look, I'm not saying that doesn't happen. I know it does. I'm not trying to discredit that at all, but that is not the majority, and we have to illuminate more than that. But for some of us that may not be having that, but we're so brain entrained with negative encounters, and that's all we're thinking of, or into this and that, and it's all bad, then you start having a contact experience from beings that are coming from the Mako, from the Akashic records. And it may not be negative, but the brain entrainment in your own will can turn it into a negative experience. You can warp, I had one of these beings tell me, these throne beings, I don't have that picture out. It's the throne beings with their light coming out of the back of their head and the different crystals here. One of them, the golden one, showed itself to me in a chamber with this brain, this light coming out the back of its head being contained. And it's saying that the warp fields of your thoughts affect reality. And for me, that's two different concepts. Warp field energy, warp fields, and then brain thoughts. But now I know more what that is now, the more I learn. Okay, our thoughts do affect reality. And they can create warp fields themselves. That's what real strength, and I think is one of our gifts, one that we're being deprived of. I've said it before, people should be magical. There's a reason why people are not magical is because we've got these predators all over us that are eating away at our energy. So let me keep going down here. Hey, Disclosure 9. Thank you, Disclosure. I don't always do the way I explain. Thank you. I don't always do so good. I try because sometimes some of the stuff is beyond me sometimes, but I try to put it as I understand it and explain it the way, you know what I mean? Or at least a way that most people can understand. And my brothers criticized me for that before. Sometimes you don't put things where people can understand. I said, well, I try to. So thank you for saying that because I'm not that heavy. If you met me in person, you might be like, man, I met that dude in person. He sucks. You asked me a question, and I'm like, you were back in the 80s, cast me going, doy, doy. You asked me a question, duh. And I can't really answer, He's like, guy sucks. Yeah. Disclosure now, mixing facts with lies, such unfortunate problem, UFO community. Oh, it is. And that's what that is with, with that whole Meier thing. And I realized, like, if it wasn't for like something like that test by Vogel, so much what he did would discredit everything. But at least there's something we can try to use that can show us some way that at least cold fusion can be done, and the way those elements were kept their individual identities and fused together like that without heat. That's I think that's important, and maybe that's someone trying to help us and push us forward a little bit. That's maybe not dark cabal or whatever. Hard to believe, but there's some good out there somewhere. Vincent Ramirez. So all this information is on your site. Yeah, it's all on YouTube. All on YouTube here. All you gotta do is go to the playlist of this channel and make sure it's a playlist. Otherwise, everything won't come up. And there's about 360, 70 videos on here. And I explain all this type of stuff. I go through everything. As far as the Marcel Vogel analysis, he didn't use IBM to do the analysis, but he did like through his own equipment or whatever, his own deal. But it's all on that video right there. I linked that there twice. It's in there. And there's a whole bunch of stuff on there. I talk a lot more than just this stuff, but if you're interested in like the crystals and the stuff I showed as far as my experiences, please check out in the playlist my personal encounters. I've got a lot of sketches and I try to show them all and try to explain everything as I know it anyway. So more bioluminescent creatures in the sea. Yeah. You know, I had real quick, I had an encounter. Sorry, now suddenly I need light back in here. I've had an encounter with a being that seemed to go pretty hard with people, and that was Mana. And Mana looks like I want to call it her, I guess, as what people say, but like the brain is on the outside. Oh, here are the throne beings. The golden one was the one that was telling me it's Elvis in his head. He was in a chamber, and like the hair, the top of the head, the light is like going out into space, and it was being contained. That's when it's saying that the warp fields of your brain affect reality, or sorry, warp fields of your thoughts. I'm sorry. This being Mana. All right, and Mana going to like sea creatures. I wondered why some of these beings are not just interacting with me, but what is their connection with Earth itself, within the Earth matrix? And you know, I woke up one morning really tripped out on coral bleaching, and you know, I'm not real familiar with that coral bleaching and the coral reef and everything. So I get that stuff, and it's really between 3:30 and 5 a.m. I get slammed. It's been like that my whole life, you know. And I'm picking up this coral bleaching thing, and it was connected to Mana, okay, in some way. And it started making me wonder. So I didn't know really what. I'll be honest with you, I'm not that smart. I didn't know what coral bleaching was, so I had to research it, and I found out, and that started taking me into not just why it's happening and everything, but also something called supercoral. And supercoral is resistant to the bleaching effect. All right, and that makes me wonder with Mana. Okay, is that a being? Because okay, well, sorry, I didn't say this because I can't find a picture, and I'm not gonna keep looking for it. I'm sorry. Oh, here in the back, this is a different experience, but in the back, that's Mana. You see the taller one with the brain. And the outside, the exposed brain looks. I've encountered that being several times when I was younger, but it's got a hard consistency to it. And what I've found on Earth looks most like it is brain coral. Here, that's Mana again. Mana with one of those blue cats that had actually the things. But anyway, that's Mana. You know, it's interesting. When I first showed that, when I first came forward, the images of that being, here's the Andromedan with the weird crystal thing. That thing was glowing, okay, but it had a weird lattices on it. It looked odd. It was connected to these rods. It looked to me like just metal rods, but they had these things that looked like fiber optics coming off them that were moving, and it was emitting this light. And to me, it looked somewhat similar in Tom Baker, Doctor Who's like fourth season. They had a series that was called The Key to Time series. When The Key to Time was put together with the wand in it, it looked kind of similar to that. I mean, not quite, but it just kind of reminded me of that when I actually saw it, you know. So anyway, Sorry. Anyway, going back to mana. Okay, so my point being about mana is just. I'm not gonna look much more here. Is that? There's there. That's mana, and that's good. That's a good illustration because it took Kasara Christine a while to get this one correct. One is because I have a hard time showing it. I have to do many different angles to try to show her what I was experiencing. So anyway, that's mana, and I got so many responses on that being. But like I said, I didn't know what coral bleaching was. That took me into super coral and how that's resistant to the bleaching effect. I didn't know that much about that, but it makes me into, okay, so is Mana's connection with Earth, is that a type of coral? The head looks the most like brain coral. The head of Mana looks most like brain coral. Okay, and a harder consistency. That's what it looked a lot like to me. Okay, so is that a type of coral that became sentient in the past and then went galactic? Because that being is showing me planets that are outside the space-time continuum. You know what I mean? One of those type of deals going on. So is that a type of coral that became sentient and then went extragalactic? Or is it a type of coral in the future that will evolve and go extragalactic? Is it from the past to the future, or does it matter? You know, Tom Baker. Who knows? Anyway, just food for thought on that, okay? And I brought that up because who was it? Disclosure, and now I think was, sorry, I got lost on here. Was talking about underwater and some of the beings, some of the creatures that make bioluminescence at deep water. You know, that takes us into the trenches too, and some of those beings found around the trench, like the Yeti crab and stuff like that, are just fascinating creatures. And that takes us into actually speleology, astrospeleology, which are those cats that are trying to study caves on places like Europa and all those places to find out how much of the bacteria and organisms that live here on Earth in the hot springs can exist there in a type of a sulfur environment. So that would be a different type of DNA. You know, I think that's very, very worthy science to look at and look into. Anyway. Phase and fake and appear maybe bugs, birds, or people catch glimpses of them. True. Disclosure now. True. You know, on when I was out practicing the gate of power, okay, before I realized that it actually would stop your internal dialogue. So I'd start seeing, like, you know, when I'd start running, I start, you know, focusing. I start seeing these things that look like, I thought they were almost fairies at first, okay, and they're like these blue streaks, and they're really quick, and they go out. And you think, oh, it's a firefly, but it's not. If you're not doing that in the middle of January, February, it's really cold out there. There are no fireflies out there. Okay, this is something else. Then I see a ship manifesting before or after. I didn't realize that in a situation like that, what I was seeing was often non-corporeal life forms from one of these craft that were outside and were like, you know, I don't want to say they were on shore leave or something, but they're outside of the craft and outside of those containment they're on. I'm sorry, I was looking for the one that has the eggs on it. You all that have seen the illustrations with the eggs that are on board this craft. The lights inside of those eggs, some of them were blue. You know, if you get a situation like that, some of them, because they're putting in my mind like fish out of water. And that's why they go out so fast. At first I was like, man, are these fairies or they're what? Slow down. I'm trying real hard to trace them, especially out of my peripheral, you know? And I get in that we're like fish out of water, but it didn't dawn on me that what I was actually dealing with was non-corporeal crew members from some of these craft. I was thinking more they must be fairies or fae or something like that, or wisp, as my Native American friends called them. But the truth is, sometimes these are non-corporeal beings from some of these craft that are outside of outside of, like, for example, outside of not just the craft, but here it is. Found it. Okay, thank you, Lord. Right here, this illustration, okay, that's one of those eggs. These are beings look like Mana. Mana was as third dimensional tangible as you and I, okay, when I was near this being, like the craft was. But these other beings were smaller than Mana. Mana had been like 7, 8 feet tall. Okay, very tall. These were shorter than me. Okay, and I stand almost 6 feet tall. They were shorter than me though by quite a bit, and they were paying attention to these eggs, a lot of them. And in these eggs, there was a deep mist, and you've got these different lights. Okay, and at first, as I mentioned before, I thought these were power sources or something until I started, I got sick at one point in one of these rooms dealing with this hybrid, mother of the hybrids, I call that being. And the eggs, there were eggs in every room on that ship, different sizes. But two lights came out from the egg and started helping me when I was about to throw up and puke. And the whole deal was going to be over because I was about to lose my cookies, man. But the lights came out and started helping me. That's when I realized they were life forms. And more than that, they were life forms that knew me, almost like relatives or something. I remember they're all different types of all types of containers for consciousness, plasma looking things, condensed light looking things. And that's when I realized this is an environment. This is his environment. When we start dealing with the quantum hologram and these Makos themselves, and we deal with our universe is based on the spin, okay? And when you have other universes, beings from other universes that are tunneling into our universe, to our reality, they use things that are built on the spin or on the circular, you know what I mean? And that's what this is. So this, whatever this is a pathway, a coherent pathway back to wherever their environment is, their world probably, or dimension, density, whatever the heck you want to call it, all these things. But they don't come out of these eggs because the part of the ship that's manifested enough for me to be on board, okay, and to physically be there and have this experience is still hazardous to them, I believe, or maybe painful, as they were saying. And these little manas, these smaller ones, they're kind of transparent. Like people I've seen on board craft before, I could kind of see through them. So there's something, they're not fully as corporeal as me or as Mana was, or not as non-corporeal as these. Does that make sense? Anyway, point being, that's important, so realize what I was dealing with. And some of these craft actually can like generate micro worm Makos themselves, or maybe they're natural, but they can get them there and then choose which one is the most coherency that they're going to go through. So that's real interesting. I think it's very valid. We start talking about that, and a lot of people, when the ship goes through one of these Makos, they report it. It feels like a bump. I've felt one of those before, but it's more like being pulled down. But it's like this boom when you go through, when the craft goes through one of these things, when it goes through, and again, making reference to the Mako and the quantum hologram, the perfect copy when something goes through. When a lot of times people see these UFOs, it's on film. There'll be one there, doing wobbling a little bit. Then all of a sudden there'll be two, then there'll be one, and then that one will be gone. What it is that thing is making a frequency jump, okay? And what you're seeing is actually the quantum hologram, the other one. Okay, the other one's gone, but the quantum hologram is still there, but it's not stable and it fades, Anyway, all right. Mask himself as birds or bugs when feeling threatened. Yeah, you got a lot of beings that can do that. You've got also the what the Urantia book there calls the midwayers. I've done a video on that. It's under book reviews on this channel. Go to playlist, the book reviews, and there's one that calls the midway beings and the Urantia book. And I describe what they call the secondary midwayers and the primary midwayers. And the midwayers, and we had these beings that came here, like you hear about ancient aliens, but the ones that came here that were not corporeal. And when they started mating with like earth spirits and things like that, and they start having these offspring, that's the midway creatures. And the secondary midwayers are quite close to us as mortal beings, and they're masters of illusion and like shape-shifting appearings and things like that. So that's interesting. Another one just to throw those ones into the deal too. Great, isn't it? Like we don't have enough junk going on. Girl in the gong. Welcome, welcome. Hello, hello, hello. Thanks for coming. I appreciate you all being here. Bigfoot Dwarf, what's up, man? Thank you for coming. Glad you're all right, brother. I saw you saying that you're all right. Those fires out there, man. So I'm glad you're another, maybe a little better, but I mean, the amount of destruction I'm seeing, my God. So I'm glad you're all right, man. Blazer, thank you for being here. MP333, right on, right on. Yeah, Girl in the Gong. Thank you. Yeah, Mind Speak Bigfoot, a documentary on channel Sasquatch Theory on YouTube. Yeah, and it's like they have it on there, something like things that they don't want you to understand about Sasquatch or something like that. But that's really good. It's kind of long, but once the guy started talking, he really kept my attention. It's very down to earth, I think, very realistic. Toxic rain. Oh, I bet from all the debris and all the smoke. I bet. There's a thing that I mentioned on Jessica's show the other day. It's called the Gaia, or no, it's actually last night in the chat I mentioned it. It's by these two chemists that made this thing, and they called it the Gaia hypothesis, or the Gaia theory, but it's the Gaia hypothesis too. But what they're saying is that the Earth itself, as a sentient being, actually has these not just echoes of the past and things, but it does these manifestations that are often cryptids or often phenomenon that we associate with as such, that they're actually like echoes of the earth and manifestations. And it's really a brilliant type of the way they kind of put that together. And I can't say it's not true when we start dealing with these manifested beings, some that are having to do with the dream body, others that just have the ability to. Is the ranch 420 friendly? Bigfoot Dwarf. Are you talking about Isetti? Are you asking me if Isetti Ranch is 420 friendly? If that's what it is, Bigfoot Dwarf, let me tell you right now. No. No. In the legal state, and no. People trip out. You smoke out there, they'll kick you out of there. Yeah, that place is a trip. Yeah. So no. Cool place. Very spiritual, but is it 420 friendly? No. That's a shame because there's some very interesting dispensaries all around that place. Not that a brother like me would know anything about that, but anyway. Shut up! Or I get my black ass into trouble. Cool. I think that's most of what I'm seeing. I'm almost caught up. Genocide. What's happening? Yeah, in 17, 18, 19, saw that mount light up really intense, Mount Adams. But the third time, the whole vibe changed. Okay, I was there in 17 and in 19. 17 was the second time I was there. And I'll tell you, Genocide, I mentioned it before. First of all, I'd not spoken at one of those events before. And the first time I went there was 2016. And it was a trip going up there. And it says a lot about the Sasquatch that they know they can definitely see the future because those cats knew I was coming. I was getting bombarded by that white one out there. I was tripping out. I was looking up Thinker Thunker. I was on MK Davis. Anything about white Sasquatch, I was all over it. And then, but I didn't recognize that as communication telepathy. It just felt like a personal obsession. But then my ass goes up there. My butt goes up there, and I was unprepared for how remote that place was. And I started feeling like I'm being watched before I can even get in the gate. And so things of that nature gives me a great respect for how they know the future to a degree. They knew I was coming before I had for sure made my mind up. I'm pretty sure. You know what I mean? Accepted the invitation because I was a little tripped out for certain various reasons. But anyway, that during those times, that light, that mountain did like there's that light in the middle, and sometimes it would light up. And Genocide, when on that video, if you go to my playlist, there's a SETI Ranch playlist. There's a bunch of videos on there. The one I'm sitting up there with John Vivinko, we start talking about the portal and how there's entities in the mountain that actually are these light beings that have to discharge. They're being contained in there, and sometimes they have to discharge the extra light and energy they have, and it creates these aurora over the mountain that people see. It's very interesting when he talks about that, okay? And that's on there. And something else, Jonasai, please check out the videos on that playlist about the SETI Ranch and the orb station inside. And I showed this Key of Enoch book and that thing that's inside that mountain in Mount Adams that creates a lot of the paranormal stuff that's going out on the SETI. I cracked the book on that place. No one will ever talk about it, I'm sure. But check out everything I did in these videos about his SETI. And that's something else in that video with John and I. We talked about that too, because I saw that device inside it. Look, when I went out there in 2016, I'm not a young cat, okay? When I went out there, and I thought that I was past the point in my life where I have these experiences that just stopped my world, okay? And then I go out there and my world got stopped. I got blasted day one going on. And I was out there 3 weeks the first time. So I got invited back to speak in 2017. Man, I had to know exactly what I'm dealing with. So I did a regression with somebody else. Let them go and take me deep. I want to know exactly what my superconscious and subconscious recorded, especially during the little times. I don't sleep much, but out there, brothers are maybe sleeping 2-3 hours a night. So the 3 hours that I feel like stuff was happening to me, so I had to figure out what was going on exactly and what was I dealing with during these experiences. It seemed to be conscious experiences, but what we get on the superconscious and subconscious, because these beings' vibration and speeds are different than ours, is unreal. So I wanted to know. So I did a regression before I went out there and I saw this thing in the mountain. And then probably, I don't know, a year later, 2 years later, 2 years later, John Vavinko has his team. There's a video on he has a YouTube channel. It's called Right Hemispheric Remote Viewing. And on there's a video called Remote Viewing the Ancient Aliens of the SETI Ranch. And on there, he's got his team, and you'll see them drawing this device, this aura station, this Merkaba-looking thing inside the mountains, inside the Mountain Adams, the same thing I saw in my regression. So I didn't tell nobody. You know what I mean? When I went out there, I didn't tell them, hey, by the way, I did a regression before I went out there the second time. I just didn't I want to be prepared. And I got blasted the next time I went out there. So the third time I went out there, 2019, that's one of the things I wanted to do is deal with Vavinko, because I knew that they had seen that. And that's actually in this book. On that video, it's called the device inside of Mount Adams, inside in the playlist on this channel. And that one I show in this book, The Keys of Enoch by Hertalk, what page the Ore Station is on. They give illustrations of it that looks remarkably like the illustration that John Vavinko, his team made, like what I saw. Okay, and then they describe what an Ore Station is in the very back. Okay, in fact, I'll just read it for you real quick. Just what it says about Ore Station. Here it is. Ore Station. Network centers for the docking of technology from advanced civilizations capable of travel between galaxies and super galaxies. So that kind of tells you to a degree what it is. And that tells you who's using it, who constructed it. But I tell you what it does is it scans like your life memories, and then it detaches something that's some type of an orb technology. I've got videos on that on this channel too, an orb technology that's under time travel playlist and time technologies. I talk about some types of orb technology and quantum synthetic environments. They actually dismiss that this Ore Station dispatches one of those. There are calculations that Rudy Shields and others have done that show that MACOs are attached to our individual molecules. So some of these orbs can actually be microscopic or smaller. But once they get in our biofield, they do something to push our experience forward. Like let's say like this, you haven't seen like for me, this is why I had to evaluate stuff like, okay, the first night I went out there, I just been there and I got blasted. Okay, these UFOs, it's getting late. I was talking to somebody there at their tent over there, and they went over there to take a shower thing, whatever. And I've seen all these lights behind the trees as we're talking. So I went out in the field. Nobody's out there. It's late. It's like probably 1 in the morning or something, 1:32. And these ships start, one manifests, one comes up over the trees, and one comes up out of the mountain. There's 3 of them. And man, they're getting close on me out there. And I'm trying to kind of tune into them, and I can't. Okay, for some reason, trying to tune into what the pilots or whatever's on board, the information that's coming in, and I can't. And it seems like I can't. And I wind up staying out there watching. They're dancing. Like my Native American friends say, they're dancing in the sky. And I go over and talk to the person I've been talking to. I was like, do you know you see me standing out there? Because it's been a half hour it was gone. And he said, yeah, it seemed like you should have just been out there for some reason. I think, my God, you can see all those craft? So I wanted to see what did my superconscious catch during that 30 minutes? What did my subconscious record? So I did a regression for that time. And, I'm a hypnotist. I can put other people under like this. I do rapid and instant inductions, but I can never do it to myself. It's kind of like I can dissolve negative identities on clients and other people, but it's hard to do it on yourself because the negative identities have self-preservation. So you see somebody else need to do certain things. I had to sit down and let somebody else take me deep because I can't relax and control freak. Okay. Anyway, point being, I wanted to know what happened and what my superconscious, subconscious recorded. And I'm seeing on board this craft, I'm seeing a very large cat being. I've described it before with the legs of a cat, but it's like 8 feet, 7 feet tall, and it's got this swami jacket on. It's a gold jacket with this like golden embroidery around the collar too. To be honest with you, it was straight up fresh. I mean, it was sweet. I would have sported it, but it's cat being. It looked like a lynx, okay, with a goatee. I think lynx that looks like that, right? But it was huge. So taking it back, while I'm telling you this, is that because as an experiencer, I had to make very sure that, okay, is that what I experienced, my superconscious? Or was it this aura station had scanned me, okay, it scanned my energy field in that mountain, and it scans like your life memories. And I had not experienced a cat being. I've experienced some type of a feline energy that was non-corporeal, but I've not like seen a cat being on a ship. I've not experienced one like that. And so I had to be aware, did this aura station scan me and say, this brother's not experienced a cat being, so here you go. And it dispatched this orb that got in my biofield, and it gave me this experience. And I'm recalling it under hypnosis. Or did my superconscious actually see it? Or was it a quantum synthetic environment type of thing? That's the stuff I look at, okay? And I think it's very worthy. In some ways, you could say it doesn't matter, because what that device is doing is something that pushes your consciousness forward. Okay, it's a conscious event. I did an interview. I've been on Jimmy Church's years ago now, many times, probably four times I was on his show. And it was, I think, the second time we wind up talking about it, SETI. And I mentioned this aura station, and I had said, I said, something happened to you. I remember he's got that voice. Barry, I didn't think we were going to talk about a SETI, but I guess we'll do it. And I said, well, didn't something happen out there that pushed your consciousness forward? He's like, well, man, you were out there that night, that orb jumping around the field. Everybody saw it. It's bouncing around out there. I said, yeah, I remember. I'm thinking, well, God, the stuff that's happened to me out there. I see the holographic mountain, man. F the orb jumping around. But anyway, but I mean, it's something that, happened to him too. So many people out there, something that pushes your consciousness forward. And I think that's beneficial. But it leads me to ask, how many from when Earth was a type 1 type civilization, how many of these aura stations are still functioning on Earth? And when certain people get around it with take certain blood types, certain perhaps soul traits, soul configurations, we activate those things even more than they already are. Okay, and what I'm saying is not BS. When I had to do the Skywatch, I did this deal that is a Dr. B.S. Stein pineal gland exercise, the best I've ever done. Very decalcifying. And I had everybody do it because I was watching how all the people like dude that owns that place out there talking about the reptilian dude, Greer or whatever, and they're all judging each other by the CE5 on how many ships come up when you take people out there and do it. You know, he's saying stuff. Hey, they call out Greers to clear the skies. You know, he came out. He didn't. None of them showed up. When I did mine, there were 30 of them. I was like, oh, okay. I see. This is the deal to prove your contactee. Are you a one contactee or a 10? That's obviously dependent on how many ships you can call in. And watch out. Some of these people will have you go to their property. That's not saying that's your study, but there are other places. Devils. They're affiliated with that place. Have you go out there somewhere in Australia and they're calling in craft. That's a demonic cat. And I would question anybody that likes red ships. I actually got on red for a change. That's unusual. But red ships are not, you know, the beings told me the red ships that stay red in our atmosphere longer than the plasma chart shows. Type in on Google plasma ranges, plasma chart. And it'll give you a chart of plasma ranges and what they look like, the metals part, what they look like in our atmosphere, and what they go through as far as nanospectrums. And red is one they won't stay very long. And they were always telling me the ones that stay red a long time, they're not good. And that works for me. You know what I mean? I never had any bad experiences. So these beings are laying that on to me. Hey, that works for me, you know? Anyway, there's something to be aware of. So point being, when I had everybody do that exercise, you know, that's what's cool about those conferences. The people in the audience, the attendees, they're so gifted. You know what I mean? Most of them are contactees, experiencers, psychics, mediums, the whole gamut. You know what I mean? And so it's really cool. But several of people, like 10 people or more, are saying, as they do the thing, I see this grid. It looks like a tic-tac-toe board. I heard that many times after that. Didn't expect that. Like giving targets to Jessica. Didn't expect that. I just want to go out there and get a high score of UFOs to show I was down. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding, man. I don't trip on it. But I thought it was a slight advantage. I want to see what happened too. But when people were describing the grid, okay, that I knew was that device being created by that ore station that's scanning people. So, genocide, that's just where that took us there with what you said. So, thanks. Let me keep going down. Those are good years to be out there, though. 17 was weird because I didn't know really what I was going to out there. That's when dark journalists put that thing out about Jordan Sather and Jason Quitt and Teresa Llaneros. And they're all going to be at that 2017 conference. It's like, what the hell am I walking into out there? And then the 2019 was the Corey year, the Corey conference. That was an interesting experience too, you know, but it is what it is. Sorry, a little dehydration going on there. Okay. People need to be more concerned with all this AI. Yeah, AI is really just taking over now, even more as a cliche than anything else. The AI thing has always been here. All right. We just called it different before. It used to be called robots. Anybody remember we called them robots? Like going back in like the 80s and 70s, especially, they were called robots. But like the first AI I ever saw represented was on Buck Rogers. The thing, that little tweaky, he carried the little circle on him, Dr. Theopolis, who was actually one of the World Council members, who were all little boxes like him when they were on the council chambers. But that was like AI. That's one of the first ones I had seen like really described like that. And then as it goes further, you know, it goes into other things. Go back further. There's other things, Bionic Man and them, but it was more of that. And then Kit came around. And Kit was definitely AI, man. The Night 2000. I'd even heard this deal, Glenn Larson saying that the Kit was actually a type of a Cylon, a primitive Cylon. And it's weird. That's what the sensor was all about. They both had that. I don't know, just what something come from the Glenn Larson thing. But anyway, just the next thing would be the Whopper from Matthew Broderick. And shall we play a game? Remember, that was Whopper that he was tapping into. They said it was Joshua, and he was playing nuclear thermal war and all that stuff. And I shouldn't be saying that on here, I guess. Anyway, but that was another AI thing, to the point of where I mentioned this before, and I'm trying to repeat myself too much, but I had a individual who's been contacting me periodically since I came forward. Every now and again they pop out, come forward, and they come through email or whatever. And they worked on Fortune 14, whatever we call it, companies on security systems and stuff, computer security systems. And they had asked me, they said, Barry, have you ever seen a quantum computer? And I was thinking to myself, well, yeah. I'm thinking of, I'm thinking of something like the Whopper or some sort of weird, desktop type of deal. And when they say that they worked with the IBM quantum computer first, and when they send a picture of it and I look it up, I tripped out. You know why? To me, it looks a lot like upside down the time rotator inside the TARDIS and Doctor Who. I did a video under the playlist Time Control Technologies. Under that playlist, it's called Quantum Computers and Time Travel. And when dealing in time control technology, and it takes us into something before Davis Lewis Anderson disappeared again, and everybody tried to credit him without looking at the science he was talking about. He had given patents that they were trying to get made for a third generational time reactor. I've got it on that video. Look at the pictures at the beginning. I've got the diagram on there, and it's run by a quantum computer. And really what that involves is having a gravitational generator that's making actually a bubble, okay, or a field generator that's making a bubble, and it's a time bubble, and in there are all these antenna around it, laser antennas that fire lasers into the bubble to both accelerate and retard the time field. And it is what it is, you know what I mean? But point being, it just tripped me out when I saw that, how much that looked like something similar to a Doctor Who deal. That can't be coincidence. Anyway, sorry. The wobbly of Doctor Who's 10th Doctor. Let me see. The 10th would be David Tennant, right? My favorite Doctor is by far Tom Baker. Second, I got to give it to David Tennant being second. It was always, for me, John Pertwee was always my second favorite, because John Pertwee and Tom Baker both presented the all-knowing Doctor. John Pertwee was more of a fancy dance cat, the fancy pants with the martial art. He's still too far on the martial arts, Bruce Lee stuff. Come on. But Tom Baker brought the more alien deal to it. And my first episode of Doctor Who I ever saw was about 1980, 81, and it was Centauran Experiment. That's the first one I saw, and that's the one that got me actually hooked. Then Ark in Space, and I started discovering it a lot then. But David Tennant brings in, he's a few years older than me, he brings in that whole era thing too, and he does the new thing pretty good. I thought he was a pretty good Doctor, so he's my second favorite. And I give Pertwee my third. My fourth, maybe Eccleston, actually. Too bad he only did it for a year, but I thought that was a good way to reintroduce the series. My least favorite Doctor would probably be Sylvester McCoy. I didn't like Patrick Troughton either. When I watched Patrick Troughton, it's like, am I watching Three Stooges? Is that Moe, or is this Doctor Who? Didn't do it for me. Anyway, all right, going forward. Stargate, yeah, it's an interesting show. Nanites, yeah, nanites. I was discussing nanites and dealing with civilizations that actually would be on not just the nanospectrum, but also the pico. The pico is even smaller than the nano. Then it gets really serious when you start thinking about civilization. What's that law? The Brownian law, whatever, where they put more transistors and more information on a chip each year, and it gets smaller and smaller. But when you start dealing with that in civilization that would have done that to where they go down to the pico, and it would be start, and they have something around their solar system like a Dyson sphere, which would be the most wonderful engineering structure ever in terms of it looks almost like, I guess a Death Star would be the structure of it, but it's actually encapsulates the whole star and all the planets. So that would be like us all the way past Pluto would be in like a type of a structure that could be used to harness total energy sufficient. And that is when you start thinking of that and the pico people, the pico civilizations, and how they would start exploring space through inner space, like Martin Short. That's a terrible movie, Dennis Quaid. But no, they would really, it takes us to a whole nother level. How they might send probes here and things that could be psilocybin, that's, type things that are actually impervious to solar radiation, as some mycelium is. It's really, it's things that where really our minds need to go when thinking about contact from different species that are not based on our biological makeup, let alone our technological or conscious levels or anything, you know. Man merging with machine. Yeah, they've been showing us for a while. Who was it? Old eyebrow man, fall guy. What's his name? Lee Majors, the $6 million man. They're trying to show us that. I guess there quite a bit, and I think that's much more happening now than it was then. But yeah, that's the thing. That transhumanism is a very, very real, and it worries me. I mean, just the way now you can get your degree online, you can get your groceries sent to you online. I mean, get your clothes online. You don't have to really go anywhere anymore. It's an agoraphobic paradise. You can do everything right from your house and never leave. And I think it's really diminishing our our social activity. It really is, and I think it's doing a lot of damage to humanity. That part, making us a little less human. I really do believe that. Some talk of negative entities and negative stuff. Yeah, a lot of that going on right now. A lot of that going on right now. And I will say something, the attacks are up right now. The attacks are really up. And it's not just me going through it. It's like most people I talk to, and a lot of time you get people that have these dark forces either attached to them or they're being used by them, and they'll attack you through the people you love. I mean, it's real common right now, especially with the common most people you know and love. They're not protecting themselves like we're talking about here, or even aware of that stuff. It's so hard just to pay your bills and to get your education to raise your family. Man, that's hard here, and it's dangerous here. People forget, all these other things that we're talking about, the protection daily. Like I got to try to do that 2-3 times a day to protect yourself. That's a lot, but it's necessary down here because evil just roams around down here. And trauma is right, but trauma is a member of the population. They took a quantum computer linked with a sentient AG managing the Montauk chair and the yellow tablet. Things never be the same. I actually know somebody who said they were in the Montauk chair. And it's the lady that I actually do, believe it or not, I do have a website. It just sucks because I'm not really ever on anything, but she had designed most of it for me, barrylittleton.com. And I need to actually upgrade that thing. Well, it's actually fully functional. I just am not into it. I need to step it up. Anyway, she had designed that, and I met her actually at a SETI that was 2017. And Elizabeth Diane, she's like, build the Adobe house that's out there or something. Anyway, somebody got up, brother by the name of, I believe it's Anthony Zinder, I think is his name. He is the MMA fighter or something. Um, he came up and asked us if any of us are SSP or secret space program and DARPA and all that stuff. And everybody in the panel up there, speakers, everybody said no until it came to Elizabeth Diane. And she said, I think my dad's part of the Air Force, and I think I've been in the Montauk chair. And that's really all she kind of said, and things went on. Well, she's designing my website. It's getting pretty late, but I was asking her, I said, tell me about this Montauk chair. And she described she had a twin that she went out to, there's a time their father was in the Air Force, pretty high up doing something. Sometimes he'd take them to work and, just so they could hang around or whatever. And this time he took just her. And when they went there, they went to some room, and there was a room that she said it was a dentist office. She said there was like 3 dudes in there, 2 that were like some type of soldiers that were different. And they were kind of bigger guys. She said they looked she did not like them. She didn't like their energy, didn't like their vibe. But she went and sat down in the chair because she was waiting for the dentist to come in. Thought she was going to get like a treat or something, so still they did that stuff. And she, so I was like, man, can you show me the type of dentist chair? And she pulled up she pulled up a model that was like a 1978, 76, somewhere around there, one of those models. And she said it looked like that. And she said there was a screen in this room, though, like a big TV on the wall or something like that. And she described seeing something go across on the screen or something and waiting for the dentist and then not remembering anything and having like missing time. And later on, she had just basically forgot about it. And years later, she heard Andrew Basago talking. And remember, when it comes down to a lot of this stuff about jump rooms, QSE, quantum synthetic environments, and all that stuff, look, a lot of that started with Andrew Basago. I've been around for a minute. He was the first one to come forward saying that stuff. Okay? And he was throwing the pictures that he was at the Abraham Lincoln deal and all that. And some of his stuff's very interesting when he's talking about quantum synthetic environments. Can't say I buy everything he's saying or who he saw there and all that, but that's not for me to judge, okay? But nonetheless, he was the first person to come forward, and then a lot of other identical type of experiences happen right behind his. But I just always look at the originator of things and give that more validity than all these things that spin off, Anyway, she said that when she heard him talking and describing that Montauk chair and stuff, it started really awakening even more memories that were kind of dormant of what happened to her then. And that was the first person I had talked to that said they'd been in that chair or something like that. Anyway, and it was quite interesting what she was saying, quite interesting, and so it's a deal like that. And like I said, it's not for me to question other people's experiences, especially if you got military related. And since doing regression work, I've come across some clients that they've been harassed by Mint agencies or whatever, this dark cabal type of cats in these black suits with the triangle ships and all that. I've had quite a few people now that have been traumatized, several. It's not all experiencers by any stretch, but there are those out there. That's why I say I never discredit that. And especially now that we know they have targeted neural network weaponry. That changes everything. The neuroscience has gotten very, very advanced. I think I saw Arkeem is in here. I'm sorry, I'm talking too much here. If he is, he was asking me about something I mentioned on Jessica's show. It's called targeted dream incubation, and AKA dream engineering. And what that is how they're actually taking what they're doing is turning their induced dreams into memories, and then those memories into reality. And they're doing that also with the type of a hive mind too. And it's all the thing they're doing. And I've got a deal on on YouTube here. Go to the playlist, and this one is it's one of the newer ones. It'll be under probably negative inorganic beings, targeted dream incubation. But it's something that's not easy to find out a lot about it. There's a company called Dormio, DORIMO, I believe. They specialize in dream engineering to a much greater degree than what you hear about normally. And they're one of the few transparent companies that I'm aware of. when it comes to dream incubation technology. There's a place in Japanese too, but there's Dormio also. That those Japanese scientists are doing that. But there's also Dormio. Dormio's even a little more traceable than most of them. I find it interesting when seeing transparency and stuff like that, kind of like the time sector technology. Anyway. Bigfoot dwarf, coral mushroom. Yeah, brother. It's I wasn't prepared for that, man. I thought it'd be something different than that. But that's what came through on that. And the super coral and all that. And now, knowing what they're doing with the mycelium, the mushrooms and things it's endless, and let alone the coral and what's happening. And, for the barrier reef, if the coral reef, if the coral there dies, I mean, our planet's in a lot of seriously trouble. That happens. Already in trouble, but even more if the coral reefs die. Very, very serious. From the global warming that some people say isn't happening right now. There's a lot of data that says something different. Anyway. Or a diamond heart. What's up? Welcome. Pressure pop on my head. Welcome, Victor. What's up, Victor? Welcome, both of you. Welcome. Earth Goat Tress. Oh, that's a cool name. Thanks for explaining the phasing thing, where they leave an imprint and then phase out. Reminds me of the Flash phasing in and out. Yeah, running with the old Speed Force that Flash always did. That was always quite pretty cool. Sorry, I've got these pictures so strung over there. I'm running over in my chair. Yeah, the phasing too is it's interesting because there was an episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation where Ensign Rowe and old Jody LaForge, aka Kuta Kinte, here. That's always remember that, brother. I'm sorry, or maybe Reading Rainbow. He was gigging that for a long time. But anyway, there's one where they actually are in this explosion, and they're actually phased. And he kind of explained it where they're running through stuff. They're saying, no, we're not just cloaked, but we're phased. And it was kind of unrealistic because the truth is, how is it the shoes and the deck plates that stayed solid enough for them to run around, but they could go through walls and everything else? They'd been floating out in space almost immediately. But the way they illustrated them being more than just cloaked and phased, I think was very, very accurate and and interesting too. I think a lot of that can even go when it comes to manifesting and manifested beings too. So let's see. Do we have a comment in action? Chris Hove. I haven't checked lately. I became a little bit more interested in near Earth objects, which are always a problem. But the last comet that came into our solar system that really caught my attention was called comet sighting. And based on past life memories, excuse me, that I have, which is sending out something we could call it a Bracewell probe, when this was very long time ago here, sending out some Bracewell probe that was almost like what you call like the way Star Trek shows Voyager or Nomad. It was, or the Voyager go out to collect a lot of information from around the entire, galaxy or maybe galaxies, and then comes back like whatever thousands of years later. And I think that that's what's going on now. And comet sighting was one that had my attention, just like Oumuamua did. But comet sighting was acting very weird. And I've been freaking out for a long time, man. When Hale-Bopp showed up, and you could just see it with the naked eye, I was listening to Robert Morning Sky and Robert Ghost Wolf, and both of them were saying they thought that was the blue Kachina, and the red Kachina was going to come dancing and pretty much wipe us out at any time. So that, it's things like that I've always kind of paid attention to when it comes to, and not to mention the near Earth objects. that people don't pay attention to much outside of the Black Knight satellite, which seems to have what our science is now calling Vanta Black on it. Look up Vanta Black. I've done videos on that too, that absorbs all light, some type of melanin substance that absorbs all light. That's what it sounds like on the Black Knight. But you've also got SKG 344, very interesting near Earth object. I think it's SG 1991. That's another one, very close Earth object. And, there are others too. That just was one that showed up there saying it's the second moon that took back off. A lot of weird things going on as far as celestial objects that I think we don't get the full drift of and aren't told about, especially if you follow Neil Tyson deGrasse. Brother's very super educated, very great scientist, physicist, and all that, but man, he lacks all spirituality. I mean, just 100% no spirituality, man. It's kind of creepy. But hey, I guess it is what it is, anyway. Rio and Jay, welcome. Oh gosh, I'm way far behind. I thought I was right on time. That's 5:25. Oh, I'm sorry, everybody. I didn't realize that far back. I've got 10 minutes. I'll go 10 more minutes. I'm probably gonna wrap it up. The stomach is calling for some dinner. I'm craving some salmon, or maybe even some unagi. Anybody game with unagi? Victor, it's early when I was at Mount Shasta. That's what I meant to say about Jimmy. I asked him, we were doing that show. I asked, I was saying, I wonder how many more of these ore stations are actually functioning. And I said, maybe I think Mount Caligash is one, and maybe Mount Shasta. And he's like, Barry, I've been out to Mount Shasta. It's very, very spiritual out there. It's an incredible place, but it's not like a SETI. And I said, what do you mean? Well, Barry, a SETI is a SETI. And I said, so you're saying there might not be a functioning device inside Mount Shasta. But, there's all sorts of other spiritual stuff that goes on out there. I know people talk about all the subterranean stuff. Now, I got to be honest with you. I used to follow some of those speleology journals. And you had some of those speleologists that went underneath Mount Shasta. They were desperate to find a city or anything like that down there. And when I say that, that's the people you don't hear about. We hear about spelunkers all the time and stuff like that, but you don't really hear about speleology and speleologists because it's not the pretty part of the work at all. But there's that one lady, Crystal, and somebody else. They were in those journals saying that they went all underneath there, a lot under there, and they didn't see anything like that. They wish they did. Beautiful stuff under there. And then, people that I mentioned that one day, people jump like, well, Barry, that's because it's in another dimension. Probably. I'm not saying it isn't. I'm not going there at all. I've not had experiences in Mount Adams or Mount Shasta. Never even been there. So I'm open to whatever it might be. It's cool with me. Sounds like a cool place, actually. But doesn't David Paletti say a lot of people go missing there? Anyway, just kidding. I want to get myself in trouble. Man, very cool chat. Yeah, it's been snowing quite a bit. Very cold temperatures we've been having. Genocide, you mod for Jimmy Church. Now, question, Genocide, are you one of the individuals just before COVID in 2020? I went and spoke. I got back from Australia. I went and spoke at the Life Conscious Expo at LA. And boy, that place is a trip. That's the biggest conference I've ever seen. Hundreds and hundreds of vendors on two levels and like 3 ballrooms. That place is a trip. But anyway, I sat on a panel with Linda Moulton Howe. She's sitting on one side of me, and then Mary Rodwell sitting on the other side of me. And when we get done, Linda asked me to go to lunch. I was for the first time in my life, I was a little bit starstruck. Not completely, but I've known some stars before they was famous, like The Big Show, Paul White, some people like that. But I've been following her work since she came to my home state to investigate crop circle or cow mutilations, and that was like 1987. And then she was on Art Bell, like starting around what 90 or so, the 91. I used to listen to that, so I've always been followed her work. And look, it's not. She's a journalist, so I try to remain somewhat detached, not be real critical, because journalists do things a certain way. Because I used to get kind of irritated the fact that I don't know, maybe I never talk to her again because that I kind of get tired of the tall whites. No one talks about the tall brothers that have been here a long time and interacts, and it's just I'd like to hear a little more of that. Anyway, point being, Jonaside, when we went to lunch. There was a gentleman that walked there with us that does that one POW magazine. Daniel, he was sitting there, and then on the other side were some people that were moderates for Jimmy. And Lynn and I sit there, and it's weird because both of us had to speak just after lunch. And I told her, I said, I can't really eat because if I do, it'll mess up my presentation. The stomach will be, another place. And she goes, man, I can't eat before I speak either. So we just sat there and talked. And then we got done. Dennis actually recorded it, and it's on my channel. It's on this channel somewhere under interviews, probably. Her and I sitting there talking for about 30 minutes, 45 minutes. But afterwards, several moderators for Jimmy came up to me and said, we're kind of listening to what you guys are talking about, yada, yada. And they knew me because I've been on his show, and everybody knows Linda. And I had to run out real quick and go speak and stuff. But were you one of those people? Maybe the tall dude, the tall cat? Just curious. Real nice people. Anyway. Gosh, you asked that probably 40 minutes ago, so I doubt you're even still here. Got to compare a contactee this, yeah. Patent the word. Damian White, what's happening now? It blows my mind these guys are trying to patent the word disclosure. Isn't that a trip? Isn't that a trip? Yeah. I said, then again, I'll tell you, if I were to do what some people have done, and I come forward and I say, hey, this never really, this didn't happen. It's just my intellectual property. I'm sorry, I'm not going to be forgiven. I'm not going to get a buy. I'm not going to get a pass. That's straight up lying. And it completely destroys part of somebody's testimony. You know what I mean? And again, you got to use all this stuff trying to discern what is real from fake. And it's unnecessary BS. Kind of like that Urantia book. So much stuff in this book is good until you come to the racial section. It is so skewed, which is showed now by genetic testing, that it's like, man, my gosh. It's written in a real Judeo-Christian type of way anyway. And hey, that's cool. Whatever, man. I don't have a religion, but whatever. But when it comes to, the stuff about racial, it's really bad. It says some cool things. There was a green people here. There were blue people here and stuff like that. But then when it gets to melanin dominant people, it's very, very demeaning. Okay, that goes against current science deal. So it made a lot of brothers hate this book, myself included. I didn't hate it, but it made me really distasteful of it. And I realized something. That part was specifically put in this book to deter somebody like me from reading it. So I had to, and I already read it at that point, but I had to use discernment, to actually pull out the good information from the BS. Makes things so mucky. It's just like Myers, when you get past the hee-haw women or wherever those singers, there were some type of singers, or the less than Buck Rogers laser gun, and the cakes with the little sugar balls on it. Once you get past that, you got a little bit of real stuff in there with Vogel, and something really happened. That where those samples actually come from, I don't know if I finished talking about this, but something Vogel says at the end of that video is, I told you that some of the specimens he had actually turned into powder. I think there were 6 metal samples. 2 of them one turned into powder, or 2 of them. One seemed to incinerate, okay, or disintegrate, and 2 of them like came up missing and were in his pocket. He was taken to give them to the guy at NASA. And he gave that name on there. Sorry I didn't write it down, but they disappeared. And he said also there were certain crystals I worked for before, I was working with. I did the analysis on them, got the data, and then they disappear. And he said, there's no natural way I can explain. I thought first I was just being careless, but it wasn't. And I can't explain it. And he said, we need to understand, we need to really, as scientists, start looking at not just the properties that were found in the data, but also why are these pieces being given to us? Who and why? What's the reason? What's going on? And I thought that was really, really interesting. And he said he had other things that would disappear. And that's even a little more than just, spirits. Sometimes we've all, probably everybody aware in this group, bunch of geniuses. We've had spirits that were aport things, move things, move your keys. You put them right there on the counter and you can't find them anywhere. Then you're about to leave and then they're there. You got your spares, and then they're right there on the table. But you just look there. They weren't there. You put them there, but they weren't, or they're somewhere over here where you didn't put them. That apporting happens a lot, especially in haunted houses. That happens about as much as the plumbing problems you often encounter in haunted houses. If you move into a house and the plumbing immediately starts really screwing you over, and you're getting that black stuff coming up, and people are black goo, whatever, man. But it's that plumbing, it's that ectoplasm type of stuff. It's be careful. Anyway. The 10th Doctor, yep. Yeah. Cleston. I like the Cleston, yeah. I've only met one Doctor Who. I met Perry and Colin Baker. Colin Baker wasn't one of my favorite doctors either. Not that he wouldn't have been all right, but man, that outfit sucked. That was a ridiculous clown outfit, and I think they went a little too overboard trying to make him this aggressive kind of person. But what was cool about the Colin Baker years is right towards the end of his tenure, before he got fired, they had the one with the Valyard. And they were saying on there that the Valyard the master said that he would be, that was the time, the episode was Trial of a Time Lord. He went back to Gallifrey, and this cat named the Valyard was this prosecutor. And he was all over him. The doctor does this, he does that. And then at the end, finally, the master shows up and says, oh, this has been great. And to know what the Valyard cases, what the Valyard says over there, and as I've always known him, the doctor, so he made a deal with the council saying that he'd get the rest of the doctor's regeneration. And then Colin Baker's looking at him. You said the doctor? He's looking at him. And Deuce over the stage, stay over there, the blacks is looking at him. And then the master said, yeah, he goes, just evil with all of us, even you. Somewhere between your 12th and final regeneration, you turn into this. And that's the first time they ever even the second time they hinted to that he could regenerate more than 12 times. The other time would be Tom Baker, the brains of Morbius, when he goes into what they call, a game of time lock, anyway, it's a game where they try to overpower each other. And Morbius was whooping the doctor pretty good. And at first he turns into John Pertwee, who's before him, then into Patrick Troughton, then the first cat, William Hartnell. And then dude starts saying, he said, man, how long have you lived? How far back do you go? And you start seeing all these other people, like a bunch of them. And actually winds up being like the producer and people who were cast members that they put up there. But still, it's been said now by the person that's still alive that did that. So that was actually supposed to show you that he had a lot of incarnations before William Hartnell. That William Hartnell was just the first doctor to leave Gallifrey. Food for thought. I don't know. Personally, I get a little burned out. So can somebody in chat right now say immediately, who is there more of? There's 14, 15 Doctor Who's, but how many Supermen have there been? How many Batmen? Oh, how many Spider-Men? I mean, they've all regenerated more times than. I'm not always down with the recast. Anyway, sorry. John Pertwee episode where he told military not to drill down to the center of the earth. Yeah, some of those Pertwee ones were good. But look, I was a Nicholas Courtney fan. I liked the Brigadier and Lethbridge Stewart. I liked him with all the doctors, a stiff-lipped cat. I thought he was a good actor. Victor, Christopher Cleston, my introduction to Doctor Who. I got to tell you, Victor, I can respect that a lot. I thought that was a good way to bring the show back after all it had been through, the strikes and all that. And I didn't like the Doctor Who movie very much. And it's too bad. Paul McGann might not have been that bad if he would have had a better script, like kind of like when he came back to Skaro and turned into the War Doctor. But I will say it's disappointing that he wasn't like a Cleston. And we got I like John Hurt, man. John Hurt, what is it? He in both Spaceballs and in the original Alien, he's the one that birthed the first he took the first face hugger, right? And he had the thing bust out of him. Yeah, but so he's a good actor in that way. That was really cool, but it felt like it should have been a Cleston, should have been really technically the Ninth Doctor. And he's the one that went through that. He's definitely still struggling with the PTSD. You remember the episode where the Dalek, he's let me out, and he started tripping out on it. You know what I mean? The way the Doctor would normally act, and he started tripping out. Inside of him, you really not seeing that was PTSD from that war. So I thought if he would have did that, it would have been a little, I guess for lack of a better word, richer. You know what I mean? Anyway, sorry. Sorry, I talk Doctor Who all day, man. 1.21 gigawatts. Not a bad show. Not a bad show. You know, I like the flux capacitor on that. That was always cool. And I always like this part too. Hey kid, what's with the life preserver? I thought that was funny as hell. Anyway, the Cybermen, yeah, the Cybermen, yeah. And I'm trying to think, were they ever human at one point? I can't remember exactly. They weren't quite like Borg. They're a little different. But anyway, Battlestar Galactica. Sorry, folks, I'm almost up here. I'm trying to get to the end of this before I sign off here. Yeah, true. Grew up in Hollywood, Florida. Pieces of coral reef cut and placed in the yard for landscaping and waterfalls. Starseed Awakening. What's happening? It's global warming, climbing, yeah, claims, sun changes, all of it. Agreed, definitely. Yeah. And something else about that Starseed Awakening, when dealing with that whole Gaia hypothesis, and we have to also tie that into what Rupert Sheldrake and McKenna said, more Sheldrake, about the morphogenic field of Earth. And morphogenic being the full consciousness, the collective consciousness of something, collective consciousness of like humanity. And if you're looking at that Gaia hypothesis, when you deal with the morphogenic field of humanity right now, it's very painful and dark for the planet itself. And it's not all of us, but enough crookedness, especially with the people running this planet, to where it's going to be nothing but pain. The Earth calls out to us to please stop, and what happens? More fracking, more chemtrails, more drilling into the deeper, all these things. And what happens? In response, more pain, it starts calling out to its parent star. Then the parent star starts acting very erratic and doing solar prominences, solar flares, and things that will eliminate the cancer on the skin of his daughter, which would be humanity. The first hell. Speaking of Doctor Who, going back, one of my favorite episodes was Tom Baker's second episode. It was called Ark in Space. It's killer. And when it comes to doctors, look, nobody else that played that role could deliver those lines quite like he did when he's standing amongst the cryogenics and he's saying, "Humanity, Homo sapien." You've gone through fame and you've gone through plague, famine, and yada yada, and now here you are, ready to outlast eternity and go into the stars. And what that arc was supposed to be people that had money and they got in cryogenic suspension because the Earth was getting hit with master solar flare that took everything out. And they were on that deal until Earth regenerated, and they're supposed to be awoken. But I mean, just very interesting concepts like that as far back as that goes. And then there's the video here. Oh, there it is. I talked about this on Jessica's show a lot. The kill shot. It was a free video sent out by Ed Dames years ago. I hear you can still get copies of it now or something, but anyway, it's all about the kill shot and the bow shot. The bow shot is the solar flare that messes things up quite a bit, and it will be preceded by a type of a destructive wheat virus, and it would come out of Africa, is what he said. And then there'd be a crash of a shuttle, a space shuttle. And I had Jessica remote view something called UG99, and what that is the wheat rust virus. And when I gave her that as a blind target, it was the origin of it. And it's recorded actually back in biblical times. And what is she getting? She don't know what she's looking at. A damn lab. This stuff was in a lab, made in a lab. That far back, so it tells you how long they've been doing that crap underground. So little things like that anyway starts coming to prominences. And I always thought this was kind of an attempt to push us to this timeline. Next, after the bow shot, the UG-99, the space shuttle crashes, he said there'd be the kill shot. And the kill shot would knock out all solar grid or all power grids on Earth and in orbit for like 3 years, which will bring total anarchy here on Earth. Okay, so anyway, just a little bit about that. Sorry, I don't want to talk about that because I definitely don't want us going to that timeline. Don't worry, everybody, I'm almost done. I'm going to sign off here. God, thank you all for coming. This is really cool. Sorry, I haven't quite cracked enough jokes. Somebody said the last joke I saw was on Jessica's. It was terrible. I think she lost probably like 15 subscribers or 15 listeners in chat when I said that joke. It was horrible. And it was, where do hamburgers go to dance? I was like, where? The meatball. Sorry, man. It's terrible. It's so terrible that you gotta almost smile. It's like a Red Skelton joke or something, There's people always say that my chicken coop joke. It's worse than that. So anyway, we passed through. Oh, hold on. Go back up on that. Damian Wyatt. We pass through the Taurid meteor field twice a year. Between the middle of the November and the middle of December is the extreme part of the field. If you're familiar with Randall Carlson has most of his theories. A lot of them have been proven now scientifically. And I actually got a chance. I was familiar with his work quite a bit. Then I got a chance. He was a speaker in Vegas when I was there about 2 years ago by now at that conference. And, we sat down and talked for a while. And first of all, I was giving him compliments for actually being vindicated as far as science goes. And he said, it was really nice. And then he started telling me that, part of that is what he says the end of the ice age was actually these meteors that came from the Taurid meteor shower. And he shows the orbit of it actually going out to the Pleiades and then coming here, that meteor shower. And that during the period that caused the end of the ice age, couple thousand years, he said, whatever it was, and he said there were actually, as opposed to, I thought there was just 4 major strikes: Saginaw Bay, the Greenland ice shelf. The other one somewhere near Canada. The other 2, I'm sorry, I should remember. But anyway, they're ones that actually can be found now that you can find the impact craters they found. That's always been a question. Where did these things hit? They found that now to a point of where you described that some of these things would hit. And then, you know how hot those meteors come in, asteroid, they hit, and then it starts shooting up, not just what people think would make moldavite and techites, but also water, sending up ice. It hits that ice shelf, like the Greenland ice shelf. It set up these huge chunks that come down and land and created things like those blue holes in the Carolina bays and stuff like that. But he said there were actually 21 major meteor strikes from that Taurid meteor shower during that time period. So that's just really interesting food for thought. You know what I mean? I was sitting there going, whoa. 21. And I mean, just 4 of them. Anything that wasn't underground would just get pummeled at that point, let alone 21 years or 21 strikes in a 1,000-year range. That's not not good. Anyway, just interesting. I thought you found it interesting. Just Randall Carlson got a lot of respect for what he said about him, and Graham Hancock are pretty good on earth changes and historically, I think. Unagi's great. Huh, I'm down with some unagi. Huh? I'm down with some albacore. Crab cakes are all right. You know, say they said, Barry, Barry, you eat shrimp? I said, I sure do, man. I like shrimp a lot, despite the fact that they're crustaceans and their nearest cousin is the cockroach. They're the cockroaches of the sea, lobsters and especially shrimp. I told my cousin that. I said, man, I said, yeah. I said, they're the cockroaches of the sea, though. He to me, she's neat. I know, but they're good, cuz. I said, yeah, tell me about it, man. I said, I guess, like, what's the guy from Dracula? Winfield, he eat the roaches. Yeah. Hey, sorry. That's something I geek out of my TV references. Genocide. Okay, we haven't met yet. That's a shame. I was definitely out there in 2017, for probably 2 weeks during that time. That was a very interesting conference. Every time I've been to a SETI was very, very interesting. And I'll tell you, I've got a problem with a couple of people affiliated with that place. Okay, I don't think they're good people. All right, but if you're somebody that gets a chance to go out there, all right, do, because it's like kind of sacred property. It gives you a chance. Like the third day you're out there, it'll bring up your trauma and give you a chance to like either combat it or get rid of it. And people that can't do it will leave that place on the third day sometimes, run away. But that place is really good. It's like kind of think maybe kind of like almost type of sacred land type. And that's what it does. It allows you to deal with trauma to a degree and will give you a conscious experience that pushes your perception forward, pushes your consciousness forward. We all need that sometime. It's like a shore leave from normality or normies, whatever y'all call it, normies. Truth is, ET races we know here on Earth as ET origin. You know, the beings that I've dealt with, it was a really bad. It was disturbing for me when I was young because I could not get the beings I was interacting with. I couldn't find them in social media on media. We didn't have it like it is now, or caricatures of them anywhere, or beings talking about beings like this, or beings from other galaxies, not just other solar systems, not just Lyra, not just Arcturus or Pleiades. These beings are telling me they're coming from far out. And the first time this being during this experience, you know, this being is putting stuff in my mind before I can ask the questions. All right. And one of these is, you know, of course, is where are you from? What do you want? The first thing out of my mind, I'm thinking. And the being's responding, saying, you won't understand. Well, guess what? At that age, I was watching Doctor Who. I was watching some Star Trek. I thought I was heavy. So I was like, hey, lay it on me. And it's just at 900 million light years out beyond the space-time continuum. So that implies e-space, exospace-time continuum. I didn't even know what that was. So it was right. You know, and that took me to somewhere that in the image I have that being, behind that being is a place called Abell 2256. Look that up. The Abell supercluster. It's very close to what we would call perhaps the Big Bang or the beginning of creation of the universe. And when you start dealing with beings that come from there, you have to really realize how many beings are thought forms until they get here and get into this quote unquote solar system this vibration, this thing. They start getting more corporeal as they come to the third dimension or come to the solar system. When you're coming from that far out, when creation, there's nothing out there now like what we're seeing. It's taken what, billions of years just for it to get to our eyes. So we're seeing is nothing like what's out there now, creation wise and consciously. Food for thought again, but reality. Anyway, that just, it makes things too conformed, you know what I mean? Too tight. The whole contact deal. It's much more broad than what we're giving any credit, we're told giving any credit for. And we hear so much people are always talking about these beings and these places that are like are in our neighborhood, Arcturus, Pleiades. I'm not putting these places down, but I'm saying that a lot of us deal with, some of us deal with beings that are coming from the Virgo galaxy, or dealing with beings that come from Andromeda, you know, or Triangulum that nobody talks about. The big giant brothers that were here that were 25 feet tall that people don't talk about. Okay, they were from Triangulum. And sometimes when you see these triangles, it doesn't always mean Sirius. Sometimes it means Triangulum. I did a video on that, and it's not talked about enough. And then, you know, we start reading things like the Urugu and things. It talks about these beings being here, and they were very large. You're dealing with humanoids that were 25 feet tall, a civilization of them here, like little cities of them or whatever. And then they start talking about their actually waste product, their sewage plants, and how their sewage institutions, sewage places, and how actually these beings came from a place. And it's interesting because it goes against some of what Zechariah Ascension says, that all these beings came here to mine gold and made people to mine gold. Suppose these beings came from a place that was primarily gold. And according to them, gold was not a rare mineral in the universe, in these galaxies. But when they actually, they're so, as what we call monatomic type of blood, that when they actually, their waste products, like after time, turns into what we call precious mineral deposits. Like their urine and things like that. Once it's a whole different thing going on in these installations. It's very fascinating to start thinking about that. Beings that big that have basically a much more gold blood, monatomic blood, what would they be like? Monatomic structure. What would they be like? What would their waste, their urine and things like that turn into? Especially they're eating these foods that aren't even from Earth. You know, in the Urantia book, it talks about how there was shrubs that were brought here that Adam and Eve ate of and others ate of, and the council. And then once those shrubs were gone during the rebellion, they turned into partially mortal. They started aging. Before that, they didn't age. So I pay attention to when I see trees and things like that, and like the Sumerian text, not just the pine cones. When you see those trees there, are those trees, you know, trees of life. That's what that book calls them, which are actually shrubs from different biospheres. Anyway, I don't want to get too weird on this. Just throw all sorts of stuff in there. Somebody said they met David Tennant. That's cool. He must probably sounded much more Irish, didn't he? Wow. Really cool chart. Chat. Think I've gotten to the end. George Costanza. I don't think I know who that is. Bigfoot Michigan Rob, what's up, man? Welcome. I love them cockroaches. Yeah, me too, man. I can't lie to you. Me too, man. You know, and the lobsters too. What are they like? They like bigger water bugs. Lobster's my favorite, man. I love some lobster. I like seafood all the way around. Only seafood I'm care for. I'm not a big fan of octopus. A little too chewy if it's not prepared correctly. And squid's kind of a weird one. If you get a good curry or something, it can be all right. But squid can be a dangerous one. Makes you wonder why humans are obsessed with gold. Yes, Victor. It doesn't do much for us, though. I mean, for us, actually, you know, it doesn't do much for us outside. You know, it's very interesting, but it is a great conductor. But I mean, it's just not something that, you know, when you start dealing with things that, like are being shown by those particle accelerators now, we've got way more rare elements and rare things to find than just gold. You know, it's very, very interesting how that turns out, you know, and it's, I can't say that I get myself in too much trouble, but I never agreed with all Zechariah Sitchin stuff. You know, that's one person's interpretation, and it's good. It's intense. The 12th Planet, those are good books and stuff, but I can't say I agree with all of it. And I think that maybe that's putting things in too much of a single classification. You know, what I've mentioned before in the Sumerian text, and that's one of the book reviews, is a really good one to look. Please go check out the video I did under playlist, book reviews. It's called the Urantia book, Adam and Eve and the Urantia book. Maybe Adam and Eve, Enki, and the Urantia book. But I describe how on those tablets, Enki and his wife were Adam and Eve. And I describe what they called them in this book, biological uplifters. That came at a certain point of Earth evolution, and they're dispatched from material sons and daughter, they call them, that are dispatched from the galactic center to any planet that reaches a certain level of evolution. And when Earth, Urantia means Earth, when it reached a certain level, these biological uplifters come. That's what they called them, and described them having to go through a training at Edentia, where they come from around galactic center, an architectural sphere, and they come here and then they go through another training before they take over being biological uplifters of the planet. And when you look in that Sumerian text and you look at some of those pictures, you've got Enki standing on the stairs. He's going through some sort of ceremony, and there's this water around him and these fish coming off. I think that's meaning actually sperm, and he's the god of sperm, this biological uplifter, and he's going through that ceremony they're talking about in that book. And more than that, at the end, they talk about how they fell in this Lucifer rebellion, and that their germplasm got depleted, and that he was brought a certain number of women. They give a number. I want to say it's like 1,100 or something. There's a certain amount of number of women that were giving his plasma, his genetics, so it could carry on the Adamites and turn into that. And you know, on those Sumerian texts, I show that all on that video. There's one of them that has somebody holding it looks like a woman. They're holding a woman to one of this giant, which is supposed to be Enki, but this woman is about from here, my wrist, to about my elbow. It's kind of sitting in here, and it's like they're handing her over to him. It's one of those women that they're talking about in there, this genetic deal. But then in the back of that picture, you've got these things that look like these huge test tubes with these levers on them, and there's a giant on one knee pulling the levers. Look at that. It's showing you what it's saying in that book. Again, food for thought, you know. Real quick before I get out of here, there's another book that I read years ago, decades ago. It was called Talks with the Devil by the poet P.D. Ouspensky. And in that book, they're talking like supposedly to a channeled demon, something similar to that. And this demon is claiming to be like billions of years old. Okay? And the first thing is telling people is, oh, there's no such thing as God. There's no such thing as God. But there is an abyss between us and the others that we cannot cross. And then it starts describing we got Adam and Eve to fall, and what we did was we tried to attack them in their garden at night, but they'd be with their followers in the garden at night, and a pink cloud would come and surround them and their followers and take them away and take them across the abyss to the other side, and we could never touch them. And we can't cross that abyss. Abyss. And then they said that the way we got them to fall was we got Eve to eat meat. We went up inside her vagina and got her to eat meat. And then once she fell, we got to the others after that. That's what that book with P.D. Ouspensky, Talks to the Devil, says. And, you know, so stuff like that, you know, I take it pretty damn serious personally. And that's what I'm saying. It's all good. These people who claim I've got these techniques and I battle the dark forces and I do this and that and I demolish them and I do this and that. They say all that, and that's fine. Make sure that it's not just the little shadows we see in our peripheral that are like servants of some type. And it's not the ones that, like Carlos Castaneda calls the flyers. I've seen them before. The big ones that hurl through the air and they almost land with a thump because they're like dense. They're very dense. Okay, and you've got others that are even darker than that. You don't want to come up against one of those, or one like in Peter Spinsky's book that's billions of years old. You come up, it comes up on you, and it says, "I want your luminosity. I want your awareness." And you throw your little stuff out there, your little saying, and then it laughs at you. It says, "That was great. Now I'm going nowhere, and it's closer on you more." What do? You're in for the struggle of your life, and that's real. And certain things, that's why, sometimes you got to know your lane and try not to bring more stuff to you. Because it's sometimes it's bad enough to be an annoyance, become a real problem, and they'll be on you. And you get one like that, it's worse than the ones that just jump into your loved ones and express themselves like that. When we're asleep, these inorganic beings like that, like the ones I'm talking about, they show up in your dreams like the people you love and know. Like all of a sudden you got your dad there, your sister, your brother, somebody you love, your sibling, and they're being just horrible. I mean, saying terrible things, doing things that make you, and then what happens, man? They're feeding on that energy. One of the reasons that we're not magical beings, we should be magical. And I've said it before, and people that can see agree. When you look at people, you can see a luminous cocoon. You can see to me, it's always looked like either mushroom shape or spherical. That's a general human shape, okay, of their aura that goes about probably 10 feet almost outside of our body. Okay. But then you've got when you look at a baby, and not just do they have this luminous cocoon, this aura, they've got like a sheen over it, like this really bright sheen. It's like an encoding over the luminous cocoon. And then when you see somebody about the time that they're a teenager, that part of that really bright coating is gone down to like their calves, or maybe their ankles, or gone. Why? It's because there are these predators that are riling our emotions, building up what Jessica and everybody calls loosh. Sounds like Jolly Ranchers. But I call it negative psychokinetic energy, okay, or DOR, deadly orgone radiation. And what they're doing is they're building that up, and then they're feeding. So they're just swapping all the time, swapping that luminous cocoon off of us as we're kids. They're eating it. And then when that's gone, they're doing everything else just to rally your emotions, to get you flared up, and they feed on that. And it starts by negative thoughts. They stop as negative thoughts, they build more energy, then they use our own pineal gland as a wormhole and start manifesting into this third dimensional world. And it comes out in all sorts of ways, whether it be broken, messed up plumbing, messed up car, that idiot at work that's always getting on your nerves, mechanical problems, especially things that have liquid in them, like transmission of car, things like that. They'll play havoc with you. He's trying to ruin your life to get you as flared up as you are, to where eventually you're so drained that you die. That always seems weird to me because they're really extinguishing their food source, but it's what it is. Sorry, I didn't plan on getting on negative inorganic beings, but that stuff needs to be addressed, because I see it all too much, especially in these communities, people getting used. You know what I mean? And I'll just say this, because I owe nobody nothing. There's this idiot that started attacking me in Jessica's group, in her chat. And this cat I do not like. He does not like me. And this individual follows around good-looking women and stalks them on social media. They were a part of a group that I was administrator of. There's only 2 administrators there, and they're following the other administrator around and saying rude things to them constantly, no matter what they post on anything. They're arguing everything, act like they're just some expert, and just a total jerk. All right? And then what happens? I pull up a picture to get a look at this person, and they have fangs. 2, 3 pictures of them smiling with fangs. I did a video, the dark forces always live clones. Probably that too. Sorry, I gotta get out of here, y'all. They always leave clues. And when I see fangs like that on somebody, it shows what? They're looking to feed, trying to get a feed out of me to feed. And once somebody like me or people like you all get really pissed off and go off on somebody and flare your emotions, you don't just feed the demonic forces attached to be using that fool. You're feeding an army of them. Somebody just made that clear to me the other day. So we're very close to me. That's exactly the deal. You're feeding a whole army of them. All right. So that's how serious this is, especially since they're getting desperate. Things are changing a little bit. So their tactics have become more desperate than ever right now. More cutting throat. Anyway, that's why so many of us are getting attacks right now. They're just ramping up. And sometimes they may not be like that fool right there, that fool I'm talking about. I think he works for them. But there's other times people are just getting used by these things and they don't even know it. You know, and remember, all our thoughts are not our own, especially the negative thoughts, and that our higher self, our superconscious, it's positive. That's why when dealing with these negative identities and things, the negative identities react to triggers, and it's always negative. It's always detrimental to the self. Negative identities, which come from the negative self, they react in a way that is detrimental to the self. However, the spirit responds in a way that's always positive to the self. And when I say the spirit, that is our superconscious. I never hear all these words, divine, over self, all these different words to describe it. I like the word superconscious. I mentioned before, this book calls it the thought adjuster. That kind of makes sense too. And the thought adjuster that comes and actually helps us all times with our thoughts and everything. So okay, so that's the thought adjuster, the superconscious, that part of us that's still in perfection with the creator. I think that Kat Bashar talks about that. It's still in perfection with the creator. It is positive. We are generally positive beings. I know it don't seem that way, but we are. But there's so much trauma that goes on around here that it's hard to believe that. We're magical beings, but we've been deprived of that because there is no more of that sheen that the babies have, that luminous sheen. They take that, they're eating that. We're under attack all the time as food sources, always. Sorry to end on that point, but hey, it is what it is. I think I'm done with the chat. Everybody's there. Thank you, everybody, for coming. I will try to do another one of these. I'm sorry, I still don't know how to put the pictures up and all the cool stuff, but I'm learning. Jessica's helping me too, and I will get that stuff, start getting better at this. Just the fact I can get on here now and everybody can hear me is intensely further for me. It's like a miracle. One more thing, I'm still way behind on returning emails. I thought I'd get them done 2 days ago, and I haven't been able to get it done. There's at least 10 people that are trying to schedule with me, and I did not get back with them. So you will get an email from me if you're still interested. I'm scheduling people now out for like the next month. I started seeing people again about 4 or 5 days ago. And it's going really well. You know, nothing's wrong. I just sometimes back off some things that are spiritual in these things so I can recharge and group myself and make sure I'm good to go. You know what I mean? It's like Highlander. You can only take so many quickenings. Be careful. You don't want to take that dark quickening. You Highlander fans, there's an episode where he took the head of the Jim Koltek was his name, and he said he was a Hyoka, and his job was he's immortal that took the other evil immortals, and for his tribe, he said he took all as a Hyoka, he took all evil into himself, and then he overloaded. Is what happened. He went dark, and McLeod had to take his head. Anyway, and then he went dark. McLeod got turned. That was devastating. Yeah, he went in. The old buddy Richie Ryan, who was just his little flunky, went there trying to take his head. It was almost traumatizing. My brother kept laughing. I was like, man, I don't like Richie either. He used to be on General Hospital. But man, but still, man, that actually killed himself in real life. I was like, still, man, I felt sorry for him. That was his partner, man, his hero. And he came in trying to chop his head off, man. You know. Anyway, thank you all for being here. More people than the subject than I thought. Again, before I get out of here real quick, I'll put that link back up here to Marcel Vogel's analysis here. And it's Once again, that's from 1979. And what I'll do too, when this renders and I put it actually out on or on YouTube, I'll put that link in the comment section down there, and I'll also put it on Facebook so everybody gets a look at it. I know a lot of people won't watch it, but it's there. It's real. It's got evidence and data on there. So please check it out. Thank everybody for being here. A lot of compliments and things. I got so much appreciation for everybody. Just me going live, I said I would never do it. A lot of you people know me. I said I would never go live. I told Jessica that too. I said, it's not my thing. My whole deal was I was going to do my little library of videos and then get off social media and be done with it. But it's spirit does things, pushing us forward. I didn't think really anybody was listening to me, to be honest. You know, a little, but not much. Not like what I think is actually going on. So I wanted to let everybody know I fully acknowledge that. And I feel very blessed. And I'm blessed to be on a platform right now that does this. If people like these lives, maybe I'll even start doing once a week and set up a schedule or something. But so many people do lives now. It's like, gosh, what would I do it? But I would do that. And especially for my people on Patreon, I'm still around because of them. So, and although I might shut that Patreon down soon because I'm out of videos and stuff, but lives are what I might start doing there once a week. I'm going to figure something out for them, especially. There's just a few of them there, and they're the whole reason I got half those videos done because they were not free. So anyway, thank you all very much. Much love to you. Something I wanted to say. Oh, real quick. There's a new video going around. Real quick before I get out. There's a new video going around. It's been sent to me three times. It's a new deal. It's like on a reel. And it's, oh, don't go into the light. It's a soul trap. That again. And this one says, oh, these great religious texts tell you not to do that. What? Which ones? Not saying it doesn't happen. Not the ones I've read. Certainly isn't the Bardo Thodol or Tibetan Book of the Dead. It's not those books. Which religions is it? Which? I mean, just stuff like that. Point being, it's disinformation. It is disinformation through in and throughout. And this one tells you, oh, go to the void. I've heard that before. Pass the light, go around the light, and then go to the blackness, go to the void. And for those of us that like, black science and are pro-black, they throw melanin in there usually. Oh, it's the melanin. Like that's going to make it more acceptable. When in reality, that's bad advice. What that light is simply a tunnel to another dimension, to another part of the universe. It's a tunnel. It's what it is, more than anything. Okay. And secondly, I will say that, when dealing with this right here, Mind of God, and I did a video on this channel. This is from Ray Hernandez and CCRI, and it deals a lot with where we go after we die. And it's the mind of God that actually takes our life memories, a repository that takes of God that takes our life memories. Then we reincarnate. And I kind of did a video. This one of the later ones I did. It's the mind of God and the great eagle. Carlos Castaneda's teacher, Juan Mattis, told him that the Toltecs and the sorcerers found out that really the universe is shaped like an eagle. And that when we die, we go into the beak of the eagle, and the eagle, that beak erases our life memories, especially because once we go through the beak, we enter into the void that they call the dark sea of awareness. And they said that in the dark sea of awareness, you lose the containment of your energy fields that are your life memories, and it goes into that void. And here you got people telling you to go into it. Don't go to light, go into that instead. And everything they were saying in that video does not go along with what I've experienced in past life regressions, what I experienced myself. Hey, look, if I experienced it, I would just tell you. I'm not going to lie. I will eat it. I will say, hey, I gave Jessica a blind target of the light, a protected target, so she could see it for what it was, okay, without her being in jeopardy. And how come she didn't see what the people from the Institute were saying? Oh, don't go to light because they remote viewed it. Sorry, but how do those people protect themselves? What do you really know about them? Or even me or anything? How do they protect themselves? And how is their daily life? Are they under attack? And you think we have these dark, negative, inorganic beings that put voices in our minds. They created our religions. You think there's not some of them that are watching out for remote viewers to influence remote viewers and send them false visions? Yes. Yes. You're crazy to not think that. And we don't know how half those people are protecting themselves. So not everything that is said can be taken as literal. And there's a discrepancy there. And hey, look, I put my own self out there. When I gave that to Jessica, what if that is what she saw, this great soul trap and all that? And what if everything I believed in was wrong and all this work I've been doing, I've just been getting suckered my whole life, all this time, all this stuff. That's not what came out of that at all. And I talk about the place of translation and reconfiguration. People go in between lives, especially lives between lives regression, and how that might actually be the mind of God, the eagle, the beak of the eagle, because in that place is you go over all your immediate soul life memories from that life and all your choices, okay, and the impact that the intent of them had on others. You relive that stuff. It's a panoramic flash. Oh, excuse me, I'm tired. Panoramic life review. Okay, that's a part of that, and that's just part of the situation. They tried to show that in Ghost, but it wasn't quite accurate. In Ghost, he got shot by the dude that robbed him after the movie, and then he runs back to Demi, and he's like looking at Demi, and he sees his body laying there. She's trying to revive him, and he's going, "Whoa!" And then all of a sudden, he kind of spaces out, and he sees like the statue that she made that they're trying to lift into the airport, in the room, and it fell on the ground. And she's seeing certain things they were doing. He was having a quick panoramic life review, and he kind of snapped out, and he started looking up, and the portal opened, and the lights started coming out, and he started going, "What is this?" Like that. And he keeps looking, and he started looking back at his body and her, the light back at them. He started going, "No, no, no." And he started running towards his body. And when he's running towards his body, you can see the light behind him. It stays on for a second. The different spirits still moving. Then all of a sudden it goes off. Ooh. And he was pretty much earthbound. I've said it before in other videos. I've heard earthbounds tell me something similar to that. Different ways, but quite similar to that. Running from the light or different techniques to get away from it. And it will go away. We do have free will, and we're much stronger than we think. So you can make it go away. And with that going, when you actually go into it, why do the loved ones come with that light? Why have I seen other spirits go into light? I had, gotta get out of here. But look, I had this before I start seeing people about 6 weeks ago, 7 weeks ago now. The last client I had, they had probably 8 or 9 earthbounds attached to them, okay, inside the energy field. And it turns out, like, seriously, like 6 of them were family members, close family members that had passed. And they all attached to this person because that person can see. They're a medium. So they're all attached. And I'd cross over the first one. By the time I got to like the 3rd family member, and every time I can see, I'm a medium, I can see, but loved ones or angels or both will come to these portals and are there waiting for the earthbound. And the earthbound can't see it a lot of times till you start talking about the love of God and love, and they can start seeing. Okay, and they'll see those people there. I've already seen them, but I don't tell them, "Hey, you see your loved ones?" I don't say that. They'll just, "Hey, what's happening?" They'll tell you, "I see such and such, I see such and such." They've already been there, okay? But then in this deal here, a lot of these other earthbound spirits, the same family, is saying the first one I crossed over was from that family. They're seeing them over there. Well, they're such and such. Well, they've got, they have these light bodies. Well, they have wings. They have all this energy on them. They're telling me to come over. It's not bad. And I'm thinking up here thinking like, damn, that was just 15 minutes ago. 10 minutes ago, I crossed that one, and they're already over there. They see you get a body when they cross over, a light body. But in this case, I mean, they've already gone in. Time isn't the same over there. They've done enough change that they become like a cherubim or some type of an angelic, a helper. And then the other one crossed over, then there are more of them standing with them. The ones that, and one told me, "But I don't understand. They were just right here with us, with me, in the body of the client, attached to a different part of the body, but they communicate, you know?" So, but now they're telling me to come over. It's not what I think. I was, cognitive behavioral. Well, don't you want to go over there, get you some wings, go over there, get you a body, or you want to keep living and tormenting my client? And they'll transition fairly easy sometimes. Other situation I've heard. Well, I've been told by the others to go into the light, or don't mess with it. Don't even talk about the light, and don't talk about God. Why? Because they said they'll throw me in the pit. But what's the pit? I don't know, but they say it hurts even more than this. And right now they're trying to get people to talk to them, and they don't have bodies. People can detect them. Sometimes they can't. So they're having to join with people and live through behavior patterns through a part of trauma in that person's body. Okay. I was talking to somebody. I just came from a spiritual fair before I did this. And, this lady's talking to me, came up. She's a contactee too, but the angelic realm, and it's how that's not understood when actually what goes on, the things like that. We're really shorted by that quite a bit, and the others, this pit, it's going to be somewhere where they're pulling at you, where they're trying to negative thoughts city, all these things, and it makes and it just plays into our concept of hell, which they also have orchestrated to a certain degree. I've had to deal with the fact that I mentioned before, what happens when you cross over some of these earthbounds, or you have one attached, or when they're dealing one and then they see somebody over there that shouldn't be there, somebody who's horrible, somebody that killed people in their life, somebody that was not a good person, but then they're over there in the light, in the higher realms, kind of blissed out and happy and doing very well. Why is that? I say, is it because the light is a trick, or is it because we really don't understand redemption and what we are and how that whole system goes? Again, I throw this out for you for food for thought. I don't have all the answers, but I can tell you what I've experienced. I know telling people to not go into light is bad advice. Bad advice. What that is a tunnel. It's not that it's this great reincarnation cycle. And I'll say this again before I get out. I've done a lot of past life regressions now. And look, I ask every time before they go back, hey, are you being, these people, these individuals, these spirits choose where they reincarnate. It's not always on Earth. It's other places, other realms. But every time I ask, hey, are you being forced? And I get these responses like I'm almost an idiot for even asking. I say, hey, are you being forced? Is the light making you go over there? No. Like I'm just stupid, you know what I mean? Well, hey, how about your guide? They've been hanging out with you the whole time. Are they making you go over there? Are they urging you to go over there? No, it's my choice. I hear that again and again. And when I don't, I'll tell y'all. A gentleman I worked with recently that's real cool, and he's known in these circles. He was different. He went to the place of translation and reconfiguration, the past life part, but he didn't have guides with him. They didn't have guides with him. And they mentioned how they've not been able to communicate with their guides and angelics and stuff, and don't think they have any. I think more of it was a block, okay? But what's so interesting about them is that when they went to this place of reconfiguration and translation and reconfiguration I talk about, they described it as being in the place of cold, the zone of cold, the place of cold, not a negative place, but it's just a place of cold. And I swear, when they're saying this, I don't have the book in here. It sounded much like what the Council of Nine in the book Earth, the only planet of choice, described where they come from. They describe different civilizations with the S in that book that are these different levels of worlds that are actually right here on Earth, that are like what I was taught as a kid, that the Earth, the dimensions on Earth is like an onion, the layers of an onion. It's that thick here, okay? And that these other places, like one place in that book they called Hoova, Hoova. It's supposed to be more of a higher realm type, but it's on Earth, like more of a higher Earth, and it's the Hoova civilization and things like they give all these names in there. But this Council of Nine that is being channeled by this group, in which Gene Roddenberry is asking questions. He's a part of that group. It says GR in there. This is like 5 or 6 years that group was before he made the original Star Trek. It's going that far back. Anyway, this Council of Nine say they come from the zone of cold. And this client had never even read that book or heard about that, I don't think. Okay. So it's things like that I try to, piece some of this stuff together. But they didn't have a guide with them or an angelic. But there are yet other souls at this place of reconfiguration going through it also in this zone of cold. And I know that we all don't just float around completely. Even if we're sleeping survivors, at some point there are others that help, whatever you want to call them, angelics, guides, creator fragments, whatever. But there are others that help. We don't just go alone everywhere all the time through the cosmos. It's because there's more of a collective consciousness through the God force than that. I'm going to leave it at that, y'all. Much love to everybody. Sorry, that goes on probably too far. I get to talking too much and going on. Oh, there's a bunch of more people on here. 8 or 9. Victor, 8 or 9 Earthbounds. I found normally I can do about 11 or 12, about 12 before I start getting tired. You know what I mean? In like one session. Because some of them were, most of the time, a lot of the Earthbounds will cross over fairly easy because I've been wanting somebody to talk to, especially if you don't approach them like you're Max von Sydow and you're exorcist. Because some of these are not demons. Sometimes we got bad people that die and they turn into something worse. But a lot of them aren't demon. They're just lost souls, literally. They couldn't let go of that house. Who's to come in there and mess up my decorations? Who's to come in there and tear up my trees and, or my loved one? They told me don't leave. They're begging me not to leave. I got to look out for them. I can't just take off. You know what I mean? Or, hey, I need another drink. Hey, I need to get high again. I can't feel it anymore. Kind of like Ghost. You remember the train Ghost? He broke the cigarettes fell out. Yo, I'd do anything for a drag. So what they do is they go jump in somebody else and start living as negative behavior patterns that causes that person to start doing stuff like that, getting tore up like they did. And then they start feeling it. I mentioned a client I had before that this spirit was the male jumping in a female and pushed her into being an alcoholic, jumped her at a bar, okay, when they're hanging out with their friends, and said, but they weren't having a good time because they have actually social anxiety. But the ghost said, the earthbound spirit, they weren't having a good time. So I joined with them to show them how to have another drink. And their whole thing was before they died, they were trying to get another drink when they fell out in the street. So I show them how to have another drink. But boy, they could really put them away. And that's because what unknown, they have a genetic disposition to alcoholism. But I say, they could really put them away. And when I get them so drunk or so wasted that they black out, I feel the most alive. That's terrible. But that's what goes on, Anyway, much love, y'all. I think I'm down the chat again. Carrie R, thank you. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate you. And I'll do this again. If y'all like it, help share the video a little. Maybe I've never been to the subscriber thing, but it'd be cool if one day I could reach 14,000. I think that'd just be cool. There's not very many away, but I try to be too much into likes and subscribers and stuff like that on the social media because I think there's a demon in charge of that gets our energy fields entwined with some of these negative people and these dark people, and it's dangerous. Anyway, please share the video. I'll try to put that link on there later for the deal, the Marcel Vogel video. And let me know if you like this, and what I'll do is maybe try to set up to do it more frequently if it's successful and stuff. So God bless you all, and peace.